Evening, everyone. It's February 13th, 2018. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Mission Viejo City Council, the Community Development Financing Authority, the successor agency of the Community Development Agency, the Housing Authority, and the Library Board of Trustees. I know that Councilmember Bucknam had let us know that she will be a little bit late, but everyone else is here and ready to go. Mr. City Attorney, are there any items that will take us into closed session this evening?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we have one item, CS1. It's a conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, and it is properly agendized, so at your pleasure, we can recess to closed session.
Thank you very much. So we will go to closed session, and we will return at around 6 p.m. or shortly thereafter to continue on with our council meeting today. Would you bring us back from closed session, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, and public. We had one closed session item, a consideration of potential initiation of litigation. Council was briefed, gave direction, but no reportable actions occurred, sir.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Kelly will lead us in the invocation, and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Please bow with me. Our Father, we are so grateful for this wonderful community that we live in, that we get to call home. We thank you for the many, many blessings that we all enjoy here. We ask that you would give us your hand of wisdom tonight, each one of us, as we make important decisions that affect our city. We ask that you would be with our law enforcement, our firefighters, those in the military who are in harm's way. We ask your hand of protection upon them, and also upon all of the Olympic athletes and all of the visitors in Pyeongchang during these troubled times. We ask for wisdom, for guidance. Amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. And we have one presentation, and I'll go down to the one presentation box. Association Distinguished Budget Presentation Award to Administrative Services Manager Susan Dutzen. The award represents a significant achievement by the city. To receive this award, the city needed to rate extraordinary in the following 4 categories: policy document, financial plan, operations guide, and a communications device. There were over 1,600 participants in the Budget Awards program. Congratulations on your achievement. This is the certificate, the award. Now you have to account for yourself.
I will. So I just have a quick statement. So creating the budget is both an agonizing and thrilling experience, but above all, it's a group effort. It involves all levels of staff in all the departments, and we start with the strategic goals set by City Council, along with their priorities for the budget cycle. From here, staff develops the department goals and their performance measures, each tied to one of the strategic goals. And it could not have been completed on time without support from everyone in the Administrative Services Department, including Cheryl Diaz, Sherry Merrifield, and Andrea Pham. And then today I found out that we also received the Operating Budget Excellence Award from the California Society of Municipal Finance Officers with a score of 98 out of the possible 100. And the final comment in that award was that the budget is a very good model for others to follow. So thank you.
What were the 2 points, what were the 2 questions you didn't answer? Why didn't you get 100? This is questions I always got from my parents when I came
We
home.
didn't get 100 because there's one item that's regarding cost allocation, and we don't do cost allocation. So every year we try to answer that as best as we can by saying we just don't do it, and every year we can't get past that point. So this year we didn't get 2 of the 4 points, but in the past we've not gotten any of the 4 points. So at least we're moving up.
Moving in the direction.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay. We're going to go to public comments, but first we have some Boy Scouts from Troop 637 in the audience. Can you gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, stand up and identify yourselves? Thank you. We have Xavier Gherkin, Ryan Ross, Caden Corder, Max Maver, and Tyler Wegas. We're happy to have you here. Which Olympic event are you participating in tonight? So they're working on their citizenship and community badge, and we'll let the city clerk know of your attendance, so you'll be halfway on your way, and you have to stay the whole meeting to earn it, by the way. No, I'm just kidding. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. So we now go to public comments. Okay. Public comments is the time set aside for the council to hear members of the public regarding matters that are within the jurisdiction of the council but not listed on the agenda. Under the provisions of the Brown Act, public comments is limited to only those matters over which the council has jurisdiction and does not include any other matters that may be of interest to the public. The council encourages members of the public to present your views to the council in a forthright and productive manner so that the council may take your views into account in its deliberations and decisions on city matters. If you have comments on specific agenda items, your request to speak form needs to be turned into the city clerk before the item is called. Each speaker may be allotted 3 minutes, no more than 30 minutes total for public comments pursuant to city council policy. Public comments will be heard at the beginning of the meeting, and any remaining speakers will be heard at the end of the meeting. So, Mayor Pro Tem, who is our first public comment?
Mr. Larry Gilbert, followed by Gail Ravis.
Good evening, council members. Folks, the Public Records Act and the Brown Act are the most important state statutes that are supposed to provide open and transparent government. At a League of Cities conference, RWG attorney James Markham stated that he could be very clever about circumlocating the Brown Act. In one of his conference statements, he asked, "Does anyone here really believe that the only time council members discuss issues of interest in the city is at open council meetings and even in executive session?" Another statement, "Does anyone here think 2 or 3 councilmen haven't committed to go to a certain way on an issue other than at a council meeting? Whether they're at coffee or they're having phone calls, this is a copy of that meeting." I raise this point based on the city staff refusing to comply with my public record request relating to the proposed voting rights discussion. Amazing. President Trump declassified and released the 4-page classified memo of the FBI FISA court issue without redactions, yet the city refuses to provide the requested documentation. All I requested was to obtain all correspondence between the city council and city attorney. The city response, attorney-client privilege. In fact, the judge just mandated release of Ken Starr documents in the Clinton impeachment today. A lack of documents only places a cloud over the city, as there may have been serial violations of the Brown Act as well as gerrymandering. Who gave the city attorney his marching instructions to retain the status quo? To me, status quo could be redrawing district lines that protect each council member, as evidenced by Map Z. On October 24th, 2013, I submitted a public records request to the city in which I asked to see all correspondence between our city manager and some of his South County peers relating to myself. On November 4th, I received a reply that there is no applicable communications on file. What Dennis and his staff did not know is that I obtained a copy of his September 12th email to San Juan City Manager Karen Brust, in which he smeared my name. On that same date, she responded, "Hi, Dennis, thank you so much. Love to do lunch." At the December 2nd meeting, he was forced to admit having deleted the email and that it is no longer available for production. Ed, as heads of corporations, we are both aware of the IRS rules of expense deductions in the public sector. After a League of Cities dinner in Long Beach, I made a simple request to see who attended the dinner and its purpose. The response to that public record request is that we do not have a record of the attendees nor a document stating the purpose of the dinner mentioned above. Not that long ago, the Register had a big article on withheld records, and unfortunately, Mission Viejo was included in that report. And again, I'm disappointed because we will never know what transpired between you, 5, and the city attorney. Thank you for your time.
Gail Revis, followed by Mark Sparrows.
Oh, it doesn't have a light anymore. Old school. Hi, Gail Revis, and thank you. My 3 minutes is hardly time to say this. However, you will all have unlimited time to try to rebut me. You have ceded power and control of a city facility to an amateur volunteer group. If you were honest, you would admit it is taxpayer subsidized. For years, proponents argued that the city would receive increased gas tax, unaware that turnstile is not how our share is computed. Arguments were made that our hotels would be filled, yet no effort was made to reach out to the same hotels for naming the dive tower. Much hoopla about being business friendly, but how many presentations for naming have been given at the Chamber of Commerce events? I paid for my own ticket at the subsidized big party last year, yet no mention was made to those businesses or individuals for an opportunity for them to have their name on the diving facility. At this point, the city/Natadors should hire a marketing person to conduct outreach. This should be paid for by the Natadors as they reap the benefits. And the contract needs to be revisited so that once the tenant repays their 0% interest loan from the city, all subsequent revenue from naming, advertising, and events are paid to the city. We will continue to subsidize and maintain the facility, and our taxpayers who do not get to use the facility should not have to continue to pay. And I guess if we're going to continue to pay, then let's change the name to the Mission Viejo Matadors, just like the Saddleback YMCA had to do. Thank you.
Mark, followed by Kathy Schlick.
Good evening, City Council
Sparrows,
members.
is it?
Yes,
Sparrows?
it's Sparrows, correct. Hi, I'm the president of the Highland Park Homeowners Association, and the reason for my visit here tonight was actually twofold. We were surprised to discover that the Planning Commission had approved a tower addition to the SG&E towers that we directly overlook on our little meadow park. We're just off of Crown Valley and Marguerite. The surprise was, for years and years and years, we've been working on that park and developed it into the meadow that it is today, simply because of all the restrictions on the easements of those towers coming through there. So it was with great surprise that we discovered that all these additions, including a permanent generator, would be added to the base of the tower when we were told no permanent structure can be anywhere around there for any purpose or such. What was most frustrating is that the notice went out on early December for a mid-December meeting at a time of the holidays and such, and literally, even though we received a list as of today of who was mailed it, there was virtually no public awareness for this very life-changing event. That community was built in 1987, before the city of Mission Viejo was even created, and the people that directly overlooked that paid a premium recognizing what those towers were going to look like, but also the view that they would be able to enjoy. When we looked at the pictographs, there was no line of sight from those homes of what it would look like from there, and the pictograms were non-consistent on when that generator structure appeared and then disappeared and then reappeared on subsequent depictions. My purpose here is that while I've been told that it is still up to the HOA, I just found the whole process troublesome in that a very major decision was made almost in the cover of the holidays, if you will, and without, I believe, adequate representation or notification of what was going on. My understanding right now is that it's still in our hands, but we still don't understand enough and would like some other additional information, maybe back at the Planning Commission level, as to are there other options, what other aspects can be done, can we modify the tower such that our views will not be blocked. It's a dicey position, but I'd like to bring it up at least to the council because I understand the Planning Commission then reports to the council, and our purpose is quite frankly to preserve our views and our legal entity and options. So thank you very much for your time.
So I would address that you check with staff and they'll lay out exactly what the procedures are and what your participation is and can be and how the process works, and we go from there.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Kathy Schlick, followed by Dale Rathburn.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Kathy Schlick, the Mission Viejo. What did you know and when did you know it? You wait until the 5th public hearing to reveal that Mr. Shankman's allegations in his demand letter were correct and that the city has polarized voting, and we are indeed violating the California Voting Rights Act. So you encourage the public to submit uninformed opinions, and now the city attorney is encouraging this council to make an unbalanced decision by relying on those uninformed comments. And now Mr. Curley is daring you not to follow the herd, but to give him authorization to create another way, to find a different type of solution to conform to the CVRA. Does he want you to make another uninformed decision by not providing you and the public with timely information on what that other solution could possibly be? What are the other cities with homogenized populations similar to Mission Viejo that have found another way to comply and conform? This whole districting process has been so bad that I cannot even call it a dog and pony show because it has been a huge sham perpetrated on the public. From the botched timeline to the failure of implementing a public engagement plan to the lack of public discussion on the gerrymandered Map Z, you had the authority to change those boundaries, but you did nothing. And you also did nothing but complain about the unfairness of the Shankman letter, and now, almost 5 months later, Mr. Shankman's allegations are now factually true. The city attorney ran everything from hiring the demographer to setting the criteria to censoring public comments to not providing adequate or timely information into the public record. And let's not forget about the one unadvertised last-minute workshop we had with a promise of another one. Our safe harbor period has expired on January 22. It would have been a professional courtesy and a protection of the client if our city attorney contacted Mr. Shankman requesting more time instead of demeaning him. This council has done nothing but sit like a lump on a log, pretending to be a tribunal, which was Ed's excuse for your collective silence. Let me tell you what responsibilities of a true tribunal are. As such, you are an umpire. It is appropriate for you to take part in the process. You are allowed to be sarcastic or critical. You have the duty to discuss and set the criteria. You have the duty to discuss Map Z. As our elected leaders, you had a role, and your participation was a necessity for open and transparent government. Did you forget your interaction you had with the Floor and Decora petitioners before their public hearing? So your excuse is nothing more than that, an excuse, because you handed off your responsibilities to staff. Thank you.
Dale Rathburn, followed by Stephen Lamont.
Hi, I'm Dale Rathburn, Mission Viejo city resident, the Honorable Mayor, City Council, City Manager, City Attorney. I was here last council meeting in regards to a residential drug and rehab facility that moved in right next door to me. I emailed every one of you. You all got my email. I hope you all read it. I've been talking to Elaine Lister off and on every week to see if she's heard anything back, if a decision's been made. In my email, I went over the HSC code. I went over the zoning code of Mission Viejo, pointed out the violation, and want a response. Are you going to, is there going to be a decision? When can, as a resident, when could in our community expect a response to my email that pointed out the one-page code, the HSC code, that was in violation, the state HSC code, and the violation of the building, of our city code. You've all seen it. Hopefully you've all read it. I'm waiting a response, and I would just like to know what is an appropriate time frame for the city to make a decision. And I'm asking, that's a question to anyone that would like to answer. You've all had the email, you've got the code,
This is your
got
time.
the city code.
This is your time to make your presentation. I think I will ask the city attorney to answer after your 3 minutes is up. You've got a minute left if you'd like to continue.
No, I'm done. I'm just waiting for
Thank
a response.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor and Council and public, Mr. Rathburn. What we're trying to navigate, as noted, the Health and Safety Code, or as referenced, the HSC Code, has a variety of permitted uses that can occur within residential neighborhood areas. Detox facilities are one that the state has removed from the city the ability to regulate. I mean, it is clear in the law. It also says that we can't regulate them any differently than we do all properties. And that seems to be a foot in the door. Then the statute goes on to say the facilities can have employees, can have medical personnel, what have you. So what our zoning code prohibits for commercial businesses, the state has said we don't view these as commercial, so your local zoning doesn't apply. We've been trying to get the state, I'll say, to revisit it, It's more interpretational. We want to know what they base their licensure on, because if the facts that they got aren't consistent with what's going on, we may have the ability to have them relook at it. But right now, it is literally one of those command and control state level directions to the city where literally we have no power unless we can crack the evidence underlying the application. You might understand that's somewhat slow going, but that's where it is.
And we have been in communication with the gentleman.
I know Ms. Lister, Director Lister's been in contact. I don't know the particulars. But.
Okay, thank you.
Stephen Lamont, followed by Michael Ashley.
Mayor, City Council members, thank you. I know most of you, but my name is Steve Lamont. My day job is CEO of the Building Industry Association of Orange County, but I am actually here this evening as a board member for the South Orange County Economic Coalition. Our mission is to be instrumental in building and supporting a strong regional economy through leadership, advocacy, education, as well as representation. Our goal is to promote regional business interests by facilitating awareness and cooperation among businesses, government, as well as stakeholders. I am here to thank you for supporting our upcoming South Orange County Economic Preview Luncheon down in San Clemente, which is a partnership with Saddleback College. A data and market analysis of South Orange County, the report does focus on cities and planned communities within our region that contribute over $30 billion to the county's economy, and it will include indicators as well as current information as well as future growth information. Community information is provided as a comparison of each city in Orange County as well. And so just a reminder, the luncheon is February 23rd. The outlets at San Clemente from 11:30 to 1:30. And again, I just want to thank you for your support and everything you guys are doing for the economy here in South Orange County. Thank you so much.
Mr. Lamont.
Michael Ashley, followed by Ryan Reza.
Hi there, my name is Michael Ashley, and I'm representing the Mission Viejo Chamber of Commerce. First of all, I'd just like to say thank you very much to the city for all of your support. Let me move this up a little here. So I'm here because I'm advocating participation and awareness in the Oh So Fit 5K run, which is going to be happening on Saturday, March 3rd. And I'd like to make people aware of this great event. So far, we've had over 100 people that have signed up, which is amazing in comparison. Fountain Valley, who we're using as a metric, hasn't even had close to that, and we have basically about a month, a little less than a month to go for this. So what I'm talking about here is getting more people aware of this amazing event. Just for instance, I want to say that 100% of the pre-registration funds will go to a charity or nonprofit of your choice. So far, we have wonderful organizations like Patriots and Paws, My Simple Palette. Right now, we're looking for people that want to participate in the race, whether they want to volunteer, or more importantly, if they want to register and come out to the race, to the run. We have 7 different events for children as young as 5 and under, as well as adults. If you come out, your money will go to a worthy organization of your cause, of your thinking, whoever you want to participate and help. The website to go to is osofit5k.org if you want to sign up or learn more about this. You can also reach out to me directly if you want to learn more. My email is michael@inkwordsmiths.com. So once again, the event is March 3rd, which is a Saturday. And if you want to learn more, please go to osofit5k.org, and we look forward to more and more participation. Thank you very much.
So, Michael, let me ask you a question.
Yes.
How far is 5K?
The actual
Is
measurement?
I'll make it easy. Is it further than from my front door to the mailbox?
Well, I love that we can bring humor to this event. I think
That's what I would be bringing to the event.
If you were to go to this event as opposed to your mailbox, you would help a lot of people.
Very good. Thanks for your response.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. Ryan?
Check, check. Happy early Valentine's Day. I love Mission Viejo. I'm here this evening because I love Mission Viejo. And God bless our spirit of Abraham Lincoln, one of the best lawyers in the United States of America history. It was his birthday yesterday. My name is Ryan Reza Farsai. I'm here to speak on behalf of myself and my partners. I'm the property owner at 25122 Marguerite Parkway. I no longer own the business, so I'm here to give you my so I'm just going to become a property owner in the city of Mission Viejo. I sold my business interest to my brothers. One of them is married to a Mission Viejo girl, so hopefully you have better karma. So, I'm here this evening because I'm here to officially respond to this letter from Mr. Curley, of the attorney for the city. He wrote me on November 17th, your email response to an email that I sent Colonel Ratz on November 14th. On the statement, he keeps on stating that the city owns the property, our property, which is at 25122 Marguerite Parkway. The city has installed an LED sign on behalf of the city and the city public illegally. They did it illegally. They've been continuously going with this process. I've been trying to come with a reasonable solution through this process. So I'm a student of love, understanding, compassion, and forgiveness. So I requested a pardon from the governor's office for the conduct of whoever is responsible. So far, I've written the governor's office 5 times in the last 5 years on various occasions. I've also written to President Obama, Attorney General Affolter, Senators Feinstein, Attorney General Kamala Harris at the time, and so on and so forth. So the SEC Chairman, Leibowitz. So far, everyone has responded to me except the governor's office. I don't know, maybe I'm a nobody, they don't care for me. So I'm going to become officially an Oregon resident. I'm moving out of California. I got to step away from the governor's flagship over here. It's not responding to me. So my question in response to Mr. Curley, number 1, you say the city has a lawful possessory interest. On December of 2017, I did a yoga class in front of there. I flexed my muscles, and I proved to the city staff working for you and the sheriff that that is actually our property, and I can continue to do whatever I want over there on behalf of my partners. Number 2, it says interior modifications. Your majority business owner partner, Mr. Antoine Curry. I just want to clarify it. There's never been a majority business partner of any partnerships with my family. So I don't know why this verbiage is coming from. This is incorrect.
Ryan.
And Mr. Curry has his own CUP. Can you tell me how much time I have, sir? So in response to the whole city, I have an issue with my city breaking my amendments 1 and 8. I discussed it on October 10th, and I'm trying to civilly respond to the city consistently. So thank you for your time and consideration on my 3 minutes. I will continue to show up. Happy Valentine's Day, happy Ash Wednesday tomorrow to everyone. God bless.
Thank you. That's it? Okay, very good. We now move on to the consent calendar. Are there any council members that would like to pull any items from the consent calendar? Seeing
I'll
none?
move it.
Second.
Move the consent calendar. Seconded. All in favor, vote by your little voting thing. Don't forget to lock in your vote. And that passes unanimously. So now we move on to public hearings. Agenda item number 12. Can we have a staff report, please?
Oh, absolutely. This is what was considered the 5th public hearing in the process that we commenced in response to a notice from Shankman and Hughes regarding a local client who believed their rights were being submerged by polarized voting circumstances in the city. Now, as we know, there is science involved in this. This as a conclusion. It's not just something you recite history or look to the past and say, we have a conclusion. The courts in dealing with this have given direction as far as the process to evaluate whether or not you are racially polarized in your voting. Concurrently with that, the law provides a safe harbor, a period in which, while a city is investigating, they're immune from suit. They're able to be sued before and after, but there's a window when you address that issue, if you will. The issue being, do we wish to go to district election, which is one solution, as opposed to our at-large election. Now, you've been doing at-large elections since city incorporation, 30 years, give or take, and that has been something that the community appears to have embraced. So as we looked at mapping opportunities, in the sense mapping to form districts that conform to legal requirements, the council also directed us to look at the facts to determine if, in fact, the underlying reality is there racially polarized voting. We did that. We came to the conclusion, and for those that fear conspiracy, this is the first the council's getting this information. Our conclusion was based on the demographic analysis, and I've got our expert here, should we need to call upon her, that in fact there is racially polarized voting. And again, we'll go back over what that means. It is just a title, in a sense. It is not a castigation. It is not a moral judgment. It is not a signal you were bad. It's just the minority group voted one way, the majority group voted another. It's that simple. It can happen by accident, unintentionally. Again, no moral sin attached to it. It's just a fact. The law is clear, both under California laws and even the parallel state package, that if you have that, you need to respect all of your residents' voting power. You can't pick and choose. You can't say one group gets an advantage and the other doesn't. You are elected as representatives to serve everybody. So what we try to do is look for solutions that respond to the actual needs. And again, the state law is very clear. And in fact, the Attorney General's confirmed in writing, and the pleadings of the Shankman firm confirms in writing that to deal with racially polarized voting, certainly you can go with the one articulated solution of district voting. And if that is the cure for your community, then good. In a sense, it's specified in statute, it's right there, you can take it and run with it. However, it also, the same law, same sections, note that there can be differing circumstances and other remedies may be better, may be more appropriate. It is very clear districting is not the only solution. So as we moved forward with district mapping, again, we also looked at the science, the technicals, the voters' actions, put through the prism of what's called ecological regression. It's a mathematical concept that we don't want to get into in detail, but if you want to, again, our experts here. We concluded that in several past elections, there has been racially polarized voting. The most blatant of it was your Measure D a few years back, the right to vote action that was put forward. Interestingly, the statistics show your Hispanic population voted for it. Everybody else voted against it. The Hispanic population alone wasn't big enough to carry the day, so their votes were submerged. That is a reality. It's provable. It's a given. So we looked at, ma'am.
For those that don't know, because it was so long ago, can you briefly explain what that was, that Measure D, please?
Sure. Measure D was a matter brought forward by some members of the community who were concerned that the council may allow land use changes that weren't deemed suitable, whatever that may mean. So the initiative, the proposed change in law, was based on a Yorba Linda model, was one that any substantive, there was square footage and acreage, there were size requirements. Anything of a certain characteristic, a certain type, a certain size, would have to be voted on by the public before it could happen. So a landowner who wanted to get a change of zone or a certain type of project, if I recall it right, would not only have to go through the legal process of the council's review and approval and the planning commission, but on top of that, there would be a popular vote. And again, the majority of the city declined it. They said, no, it isn't a good thing for the city, and voted against it. Again, interestingly, I don't know why, but the Hispanic population voted for it. So there is our best or clearest, most mathematically demonstrable picture of racially polarized voting. Again, there's no evil in it, it's just a fact. So now we look at, with the information we have, we know we have racially polarized voting. So we looked at first the solution of district mapping, come up with the separate districts, and again, for those that don't know it yet, the city would divide it into some number of equally sized districts and or an at-large mayor position, which one person suggested. Each one of those districts would elect their own council member. So if you had 5, you would be voted in by 1/5 of the city. The other 4/5 would be looking to their individual person out of their area. One solution. We looked at that. We concluded, and we'll have a PowerPoint slide of it, we cannot in this town craft what's called a majority-minority district. We can't use districting to solve your problem, to solve this racially polarized circumstance. To us, we looked at it, it'd be a sham solution. You could say we took an off-the-shelf solution of districting, and we put it in place, and it did virtually nothing. Again, we look at the letter and spirit of the law. That is not to do some sort of sham or pretend solution that doesn't solve it, that would still keep your minority voices submerged. And then we factored in, and we had outreach to the community. We had over 200 responses. The vast majority said, we'd like to keep your at-large districting vote process. So we thought, okay, looking at the facts, we're racially polarized, but not in a numerical way to be able to craft a district. The law says we can do a district or another appropriate remedy. Doesn't define it. It's like Cinderella's slipper. You got to find the right foot to fit our problem. The community majority is saying we want to keep at large. So not wanting to be destructive of that preference when in fact we don't have to be if we can find another solution. For us, for me, the very simple conclusion was, okay, we have something to cure. We need to move forward now to seek the cure. Other cities and particularly other states have come up with a variety of solutions. There's a few in California that have too. Without going into, because we haven't yet analyzed it fully without council approval, there's such things as weighted voting, cumulative voting, educational process, transportation, translation. There's a variety of ways to stimulate voting. We need to look at to see which would best suit Mission Viejo. Now, having said what I've said, if it's your pleasure to go with district mapping, we will calendar that next meeting and that, move it forward. It is your opportunity and your right to do so. And it will be that, whatever the districts may be, and we can burrow down into those as deeply as you may wish. Now, again, looking at the city's policy, if you will, of being fair to all residents and being respectful to all, and that's where we came to the thought that a sham districting probably doesn't fit the spirit. While it may fit the letter, it doesn't fit the spirit of the law. So our recommendation, my recommendation, I won't say ours, mine is, I would like the council to consider amongst themselves, certainly, do you wish to continue down the mapping route? Do you wish to look at alternative solutions? We would bring those back. Again, we would be timely. This isn't a foot dragging, let's wait till our grandchildren deal with it. But it's a substantive change you want to do right so as to not create further legal issues. We would want to involve the group that felt estranged from voting, the voter registration group. We'd want to talk to them. They may have some solutions. So there's some assets in your community that may help come up with, again, what I'll call the foot to fit our Cinderella slipper. It's up to the council. Either way is legal. Either way is defensible, whether in the ways being either an alternative or going to districts. And we're going to go through quickly a little PowerPoint because I want you to see the map that results if you're trying to create, without worrying about all the legal requirements, if you're trying to create a map that is a majority-minority district, you'll see it, and it's probably not going to find favor. So again, we'll start. We've got acronyms up there. We've touched on these previously. They're for the TV folks as well as for us, just a reminder. The first is those of voting age, the CVAP. CVRA is the statute we're talking about, and RPV is the racially polarized voting. Okay, why are we doing this? And we've touched on this, but we received a communication asserting that there was polarized voting and it was affecting the rights of the Hispanic residents. So we undertook the evaluative process to see if it's true. Some jurisdictions have ignored it, some have hoped it would go away, but you were responsible enough to meet it head on and make sure we were treating all our residents fairly. So we can click. Okay, what have we done? I'm not going to go through it all, but we've had outreach online and others, and the council have carried out theirs. We've done mailing, so yes, we've certainly done outreach. All right. What we ended up netting, we have 14 plans that came in from the public. Now, the idea was we would get plans, see which looked like they had interest ultimately to the community and council. If anyone or more than one was found in favor but a little off, I'll say mathematically or legally, we could work to refine those. But we needed to have some public input. We didn't want to look to, we had the temerity to design it for the community or tell them what was good for them. We wanted the community to tell us what was good for them. You've heard some information. You note the plans up there are A through N. Those are the ones we were considering. To get discussion going, to be an example of what we were looking for to help stimulate discussion, the staff came up with a model, Plan Z. That's why Z is not included up there. It was not an action map, it was a sample. Apparently members of the community had trouble, the majority of people had no trouble. A few thought Z was an actual action map. We've tried to explain it isn't with varying success, but it isn't. You'll note we had over 200 comments from the public, with the vast majority being...
Excuse me, Could you explain the percentage spread column?
I'm sorry, the who?
The percentage spread column, or
That, oops, I just got rid of it. I will ask our expert to give the more detailed rather than the legal analysis.
And look at that. When we're looking at the detailed data for each of the districts, you have a target population of 18,663 people when you divide the total population of the city of 93,000 into 5 districts. So each district could be above or below that target population. So what you do is you look at the percentage spread and look at the district with the lowest population and the district with the highest population above or below that target population. Absolute value, go back to your math in elementary school and junior high, absolute value of those, and you add them together. So for example, in Plan A's map, the largest district, I should really say the smallest district, was District 1. That was 8.3% lower than the target population. And then District 5 was 5.23% above the target population. So you add that 8% and that 5% together, and you get that 13.53, and that's the percentage spread. So, and you're looking generally, rule of thumb is a population spread of less than 10%.
thank you.
Right. Basically overs and unders. Okay, if we could click again. There we go. Again, that was our expert, Deborah Depp from CDR, the Center for Demographic Research, a very respected entity that does this sort of stuff. I mean, we went to experts. These aren't people doing it for the first time, so I deem them very reliable. They looked and using the ecological regression and looking at the information where we had facts from the registrar of voters. We didn't make these up. We got these from the registrar of voters. They are reliable in that sense. We did nothing to massage them, no rounding up, no rounding down. These are straight numbers that came to conclusions. Now, again, we've touched on some of these, but from 2010 to 2016, there is evidence of racially polarized voting in the elections. It's a given, nothing that we can avoid, ignore, or unwind from the past. Now, as we touched on CVRA, racially polarized voting doesn't mean we're racist, doesn't mean we intended it. Not relevant if your preferred or winning candidate is of a minority or protected class. The who doesn't matter. It's the who put them there or who didn't. In the reverse side, the election of minority candidates won't alter the fact you have racially polarized voting, nor will it insulate from litigation. We don't have to prove the electoral defeat of a protected class preferred candidate. And why, whether you say, well, it was raining that day and nobody came in or whatever. The why is legally irrelevant. Again, it keeps coming back to that simple question. Did the minorities vote differently than the majority? And if the answer is yes, you're polarized. That simple. That's the California bar is so low as compared to the federal bar, it's almost inescapable that there won't be some circumstance where a majority group and minority group will separate in their preferences. It's just human nature, I guess. Click. Okay, I'm going to ask Ms. Depp. These are the fruits of ecological regression, and lovingly I call them bubble charts, or we do. And those lines have significance. So, Deborah, so I don't botch the explanation.
So what you're looking at is two charts with the same data. All the bubbles on the charts are actual precincts in Mission Viejo, and the x-axis, or the horizontal line, is the share of Hispanic voters on the left-hand chart and the share of non-Hispanic voters on the right-hand chart. The y-axis, or the line that goes up and down on the left-hand side is the share of voters, or share of votes received for Measure D by precinct on both of the charts. And so you can see what an ecological regression or regression line does is you look at all the data and you try and fit a line that best fits those dots on the chart. And I think it's pretty obvious to see that the lines go in different directions, which means on the left-hand side, as the share of Hispanic voters increases in a precinct, the support for Measure D increased. On the right-hand chart, as the share of non-Hispanic voters increases in a precinct, the support for Measure D decreases, or there was opposition to Measure D. Since those two lines are in different directions, there's also a couple additional statistical numbers that go along with them. But those as a package, when you're looking at it, just showing the different directions of the lines means that there's polarized voting.
We good with that? Okay. Click.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I have a question about that. If these are like secret ballots and you mail them in or you go in, how do they know if it's a Hispanic voter or a non-Hispanic voter?
That's where you're correct. The votes are confidential, and we don't register when folks register to vote. There is an option to put a race ethnicity, but it's not mandatory. But the Orange County Registrar of Voters does not report voters' outcome by the race ethnicity. The racial data is derived from the Registrar of Voters voting lists and the actual registrar. That data is supplied by the California statewide database. They take the voter registration data from each of the counties, and they interpret and do extract data based on the U.S. Census Bureau's American Community Survey, which is a survey of 250,000 households every month throughout the United States. That does ask for racial and ethnic data for each of the respondents within a household. And then there's also the decennial census data that counts every person on April 1st of, say, 2010 or 2020. They do infer that data from the list of voters by name, and there is information that they will supply from, in combination with the decennial census American Community Survey data, both of those data sets, and then by names. So they will take names of registered voters and match them to racial and ethnic lists. So they combine that data to create registered turnout and voter registration by precinct. It is not known how each individual voter voted. These data and the bubble charts are precinct level aggregates of data.
That's why I said it's science.
I know. Sorry.
Okay, this is the map I mentioned earlier. We asked the question, okay, even if we know it won't fit the legal requirements of non-gerrymandering and compactness and mathematical equivalency, what would a majority or minority majority district look like? Well, that is 2. District 2, which is along the upper left, I'll call it. You see the very tortured geographic shape of it to create a district aimed at creating a majority of the minority population within it. That's one that wouldn't pass muster. And that, looking at that, and then looking at the other offered districts, or the other maps that showed potential districts, if this is what it would take to cure the actual racially polarized voting problem, those other maps don't come close to curing it. But you see there, those maps do not satisfy it. You end up again with the minorities still as the minority, which would have put the city through a lot of change, including going to districts that the majority of the folks we believe aren't supportive for no beneficial reason. Doesn't help the law, doesn't help the voters, doesn't help anybody, which is what led to the suggestion, okay, what else does the law provide? And the way the statute's prepared, the legislature said, look, guys, you can go to district voting, and we'll consider that close enough. We won't look or ask, does it work? Does it fit? Does it do anything? If you've done it, we consider you've tried, so good for you. Then alternatively, they said, or look to other appropriate remedies. They didn't define those because just like real estate and everything, each piece of land is different, each city is different, each community is different. You need to look then more closely, identify what your issues are, and identify solutions to address them rather than the one-size-fits-all districting that, in our case, would do nothing for us. Which is why then we identified to the council, you've got these two options. We can go district mapping, or we can look to an appropriate solution. What that is this second, I can't tell you. If it's your pleasure to look to that, we would immediately move forward to start designing those. We would certainly ask for, I would, and you can do as you will, but I think a council subcommittee would be in order to help direct us. Again, we'd want to reach out to the group that contacted the Shankman firm to see what they may think. Talk to other stakeholders in the community. Find something that fits Mission Viejo's issue, not just let's punt in district because we can. And for now, I'll stop there. We've got more slides, we got more science, we got more whatever, but that's the meat of it.
Thank you. So I will now open this public hearing. Do we have any public comments on this?
Actually, I had a question before you open the public hearing.
Okay, we will close the public hearing.
Sorry, you didn't see my light. I know that it only takes one example, and we are declared to have the racially polarized voting. And I know that a study was done on several of the past elections, and Measure D showed racially a difference in how the Hispanic population and the Caucasian or other races voted. Were the other examples that you looked at, was racially polarized voting rampant in all of our past elections? I think this is something that needs to be brought up.
Well, to some degree, and I won't try to flick through my email here, but in here is let's see, attachment. Well, yeah, the last page, the attachment 4, is the analysis that covers 2010 through 2016. And on the second page of it, at the bottom, there is general discussion of the 2014, 2012, 2010 elections, as well as Measure D. So we looked at both the initiative, the legislative, if you will, as well as the council election, the human election components. And in each of them, there is evidence of racially polarized voting. So we didn't put all of it in because it's one of those things you either are or aren't. Certainly we can come up with some of the background, but it's there. And well, I'm not asking her because she will tell us, but Deborah, do you have anything that you might want to add to that?
I'll just, as an example, again, it's the second to last page in the nice thick staff report. For example, in the November 2016 election for City Council, there were 5 candidates, but there was racially polarized voting shown in for 4 of the 5 candidates, and that just means that there was a preference either for or against individual candidates. It could be for Hispanics could have voted for a particular candidate or against a particular candidate, or Asians could have voted for or showed a preference for or against a candidate. So each, on page 2 of that report, it does list for each of the 5 elections that were displayed, the candidates or the number of candidates that racially polarized voting. Again, Measure D was the simplest example because it was a yes/no. It was either for or against, and that was a yes.
Okay, thank you. I just think that, I don't know how many people are going to dig that far into the staff report to get that information, so I
Yeah,
wanted to
it's-
have that brought up.
we-
Thank you.
We wanted to lay it out, and we realized it was thick, but
Okay. Is that it? Thank you. We're back open. Are there any public comments?
Yes, Mayor.
Please.
Start out with Larry Gilbert, followed by Gail Revis.
I think we're going to have a little history lesson here. Good evening again. I like to test the experts' use of ecological regression, statistical analysis. Let's use my own voting record as a test that can be verified by me. As Attorney Schenkman references Joe Chavez and his weak 98 and 2000 campaigns, let me broaden your 5 election samples by adding 2002, 4, 6, and 8. As stated before, I supported protected class candidates J.P. Ledesma in each of his 3 campaigns starting in 98 to Gil Revis in 2000, 2004. To repeat what I've reported previously, Joe Chavez only spent 35 cents for a postage stamp to submit his forms. Here's a photo that includes Mr. Chavez as we protested the grand opening of this building after that council switched our voting options from size, location, and cost to buy or build, and he's the second man to the left. In the 2002 election, I was a campaign manager for Trish Kelly. Let me quote one sample. Thank you from Trish. And I have many. Larry, we did it. I can't find adequate words to express my appreciation for all you have done to make the campaign a success. You have a great brain, a big heart, super ideas, important connections, wisdom, knowledge, and it goes on. I won't share too much of that, Trish. I just wanted to point that out. I administered the oath of office to Trish and John Paul Ledesma that December. My question for the expert, did I vote for Trish in 2016? In the same 2002 election, I also supported Lance McLean and JP. Here's a thank you letter from Lance McLean for my financial contribution. Question of the expert, did I vote for Lance in 2006? Did I vote to recall Lance in the 2010 special election? In the 2008 election, I served as Kathy Schlick's campaign manager. We could vote for 2 of 7 candidates that year. Aside from voting for her, did I cast my second choice? If so, who was it? In the 2010 council race, I was one of 9 members of Rhonda Reardon's core team that carried her across the finish line. I stood up and fought for her to get the Orange County Central Committee endorsement, even with a heated debate on Measure D, and I can spend time talking about that later if you wish. Here's the election night with a group of her supporters and part of a letter from her. Larry, my friend and brother in Christ, many, many thanks for your advice, encouragement, your recommendations, mostly wise ones, your behind-the-scenes work, your sign placement, and it goes on and on. Using statistical analysis. Did I vote for Rhonda in 2014? In the spring of 2014, a small group of local residents met with candidate Ed Sachs every week and created a community newspaper called the Michigan Examiner. We wrote stories, provided sourcing contacts for laying out and publishing it, followed up by hand-carrying thousands of these monthly newspapers to homes and coffee shops in our city to gain name recognition. There's a thank you note from Ed after one outreach suggestion. Having actively supported Ed in his 2014 victory, will I vote for him in 2018? I'd like to see that expert answer those questions. Thank you for that extra time.
Thank you.
Gail Revis, followed by Kathy Schlick.
short person. Well, I'm going to be glad to get this over with, you know, and this is the first time that we all would have had an opportunity to hear you talk about your feelings on this. I know I asked last time, you went immediately to number 18. So we have not, the public has not had any opportunity to have, except Wendy, you made a comment last time. I appreciate that, and Brian weighed in your own comments. So I appreciate having some idea what's on your mind, and I'm really looking forward to this discussion with you guys. I want to start out by saying anything but Map Z. Anything but Map Z. We've got a few more people that have sent maps in there, and I wrote some comments on it. I liked all of Joe Tully's. I like Larry Gilbert's I and H. I like Kathy Schlick's J. I like Moore's L, and then there was a new one, McGlynn, which is, I think that's pretty good too, but I would take anything but Map Z. And I'd like to know at the end of this, when you're discussing going forward, how often and how would these districts be revised as population shifts? There would, obviously, there was a couple of condominium projects that may go into my area. We've got a few open areas for affordable housing and stuff. So over the years, things will change. Personally, I've gotten up here and said I don't like the districts, but Kathy has convinced me that switching is not a bad idea. Her position, she told me that she thought we would have more access to our council person if we had a small district and a small group. I don't think it will happen. I think that's very wishful thinking, but I'll go along with it. I think that I want to get this over with, and we're probably stuck by this wonderful lawyer that sent this out there. And Bill, you said something about the majority of the residents didn't have a problem with it. Well, you said that there were about 200 people that have been responding to all of these hearings and input and stuff out of 97,000 residents. So if the majority of 200 people matters, which I don't think it does, I don't know whether they didn't have a problem. Most people just didn't, they don't know what's going on. It hasn't been in the paper a lot. And you might thank Mr. Shankman for me. I feel this whole thing, as one of the 4 elected Hispanic people over the years, I feel this whole thing has been very divisive. I feel more like a minority than I ever have in my life. And all this stuff about polarization and minorities and stuff, it's not been there. Okay. Please, throw away Z. And there's a lot of other ones there that are pretty good. And I think Z is the largest example of gerrymandering, so that one has got to go. But thank you, and I look forward to all of you telling us how you feel about
Thank you.
this.
Thank you. Kathy Schlick, followed by Rhonda Reardon.
Good evening, council members and mayor. We are at a point now where we must change our election system. The city has admitted to a proven liability, but everybody has 20/20 hindsight. When Lake Forest was served its demand letter last April, Mission Viejo should have been put on alert. Council members Brian Goodell and Trish Kelly attended the League of Cities Executive Forum on the California Voting Rights Act on June 29, 2017. What did you learn from that would have been a benefit for our city? The city attorney presented that same LOC PowerPoint program on November 11 that you saw back in June. On September 29, Shankman & Hughes law firm served its demand letter to our city. Instead of waiting 60 days to order a study on our voting history, that report should have been ordered immediately. Instead, it was not until November 28 that this council authorized that investigation into our voting history. Also on November 28, the mayor did not ask the city attorney, which would have been Mayor Bucknam at the time, to give his closed session report. I believe that it's highly unlikely that the mayor forgot to ask. Certainly, the city attorney would have paused the meeting to give his report. It just adds another question to the process. And now another 2.5 months later, we get the results of the investigative report. Ironically, The results of that study do not appear until page 5 of the 7-page city attorney report. The analysis demonstrates that racially polarized voting has been present in our Mission Viejo elections. So again, I ask, what did you know and when did you know it? Our safe harbor period expired on January 22. We don't know where the council stands. There seems to be more time spent on trying to disqualify my concerns, which are even reflected in the city attorney's February 7 report. The agenda packet contains letters from the public expressing opinions and positions, but the public did not have the benefit of a factual base to form those opinions. And now everything seems like nothing because we are in violation of the California Voting Rights Act. And another consideration is those people offered those opinions not realizing that we are in violation. So if they were opposed to district-based voting, would they prefer that over the alternatives, which I think is a weighted alternative, which I don't think is one man, one vote. But that's a whole subject that needs to be advertised much more deeply than we have done on this, because that is serious. Thank you.
Thank you.
Rhonda Reardon, followed by Jessica Reichert.
Good evening, council members, mayor, mayor pro tem, city staff. I am opposed to districts and dividing Mission Viejo into districts. I agree with what former Mayor Revis said, that this kind of effort by the government to solve a problem only creates other problems. And Attorney Curley, City Attorney, I really appreciate all of you going through this process. As lengthy as it's been, I think that the goal has been to try and unearth what there is there. But I think that what you said and what I heard from our consultant say is districts could be an acceptable solution, even though dividing the city into districts do not solve the problem. There is not a remedy. If I can't think of anything that is more telling than that statement. So I think that we need to consider other alternatives and not just keep looking at maps to try and solve a problem that most of us in this city do not believe is there, regardless of what our consultant is saying. Racially polarized voting is no, it's not even a nice phrase. It's nonsensical in its essence. It doesn't make sense because we can't identify what the problem is. And because we can't identify the problem, we can't solve it. The only way districts work, the only person or people they work for are the candidates that would run in those districts. We have learned that from CUSD. In 2010, people voted to make CUSD into 7 districts. They have regretted it ever since. Because now, instead of at-large and anybody in CUSD having the ability to go to all of their trustees and have the ability to vote for all of the trustees at different election cycles, they can vote for one, and that's it. And many people now have realized the error of their ways in voting for that. It was a sham, and it's a sham now. So I would recommend that this council ask our city attorney and staff to come up with other solutions that may be closer to solving a problem that we really don't have. And the other thing I would leave you with is just because there are very few people here, do not interpret that as people don't care. People do care. They just can't get to meetings. And I've had people that have asked me, what do you think about this, Rhonda? So there is some talk out there, but I think that should you decide as a council to go to districts, I think there would be a lot more people here trying to understand that. So I would just ask you to think about it, and thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Jessica, followed by Judith Fike.
Hello, my name is Jessica Riggert. I live in Mission Viejo. So thank you for taking community input. I agree that this is something that's very important and should hear from multiple voices. So the criteria set for this was 1, equal population within 5%, 2, continuity of areas, compactness, and 4, community interest. So there are a lot of issues that come forward and that we've heard this evening. One that I would like to bring forward is addition to what's been said is factors such as poverty and lack of health insurance should be considered. Specifically, communities with these issues should have a voice, and I certainly hope that all of you and many other people would also agree with that. Taking that into consideration, I advocate against MAP A and L that split existing communities. These maps dilute potential education communities, water districts, and established communities. More specifically, I recommend MAP G. It best fulfills the city's requirements and expectations. This map also complies most favorably with the data and numbers presented from the population spread, and it was one of the top 3 of the Hispanic voter concentration. We heard during open comments that some of these communities are having a very difficult time getting their concerns across. Splitting it up into districts allows those communities to vote for someone who would advocate for it instead of you who are trying to look at it as a whole, which can be difficult if you are trying to advocate for a very specific issue, including permanent community buildings and parks, the resident concerns about social programs, including rehab programs. And then although I do respectively disagree with the city attorney about community embracing the at-large voting, because everyone I've talked to is not aware of what that is, and then when they do find out what community at-large voting is, they tend to advocate more for districts. And then one last point, and then I'm done, is that, again, with the 200, I'm curious how many people were outreached to, because I find myself as someone who's engaged in community efforts and city issues, and I didn't see any of that stuff, which could be for a variety of reasons. But again, 200 out of 97,000 is less than 0.5%. So thank you, and yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
Judith Fike, followed by Nancy Sandoval.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Judy Fike, and I am here to speak in favor of the district-based city elections. I think that's the appropriate action that we should be moving towards, simply because I think it's more democratic. I think there's more accountability. With city council members, I would like to believe that if I had a district council member, that person would be more likely to advocate for me, or at least I would know who to contact. The comment was made that all 5 members here represent me. I don't feel that way. I haven't really been that actively engaged, I'm embarrassed to say, in city matters, municipal matters, until last year, and I'm starting to try to understand the process. I sent an email last year to all of you, and I never got a response. So if I had a district representative, I would say, Mr. Goodell, this is what my concern is. As it is now, I write to all of you, and I don't get any information back. I don't think that's particularly, I don't know, democratic or responsive on your part. And we've had several people, I was taking notes, starting with Mr. Gilbert. I'll get to that later, but Mr. Sparrow and the comments of Mr. Sparrow and I believe Mr. Rathburn, I think sort of support my argument that by having a district council member, you have somebody that you can advocate for you, that can be kind of like an ombudsman for you. So I really like that idea. And in prior elections, it seemed like council members sometimes ran together as a block or a slate, so you would see signs that would say, vote for. And I'm not saying you did this, but just for an example, for Trish Kelly and for Greg Grass. And sometimes I think there were 3, and I thought, well, they're voting as a block, so does that mean they all, talk together, think together, everything they do is in concert together, which to me kind of was reinforced by what Mr. Gilbert said in his opening comments, that, do you talk about issues together outside of city council chambers? I don't, that might be concerning, I don't know. I looked at some of the maps, and I think that people put a lot of time into trying to decide which map was best. I think map G probably meets most of the concerns that a lot of people would have in terms of having people in the same school districts and the same water board. And I think that we need to consider things other. By the way, Mr. Curley, I think I appreciated your comments about the fact that while we have racially polarized in this particular city, we can't avoid it. We don't have a large population of minorities, but I think that there are other things that can be considered as far as income, ethnicity, race, access to health care, and things like that. And based upon that, I think map G probably fits the bill should you decide to go to the district-wide voting elections.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nancy?
Hello, my name is Nancy Sandoval. I live in Mission Viejo, and I have come here without any prepared notes, just basically coming to this meeting to kind of find out what is going on. And I think I've lived in Mission Viejo since 1980, and I think we're making a problem where there isn't a problem. We don't have, I'm Hispanic. My husband, my last name is Sandoval. My husband is Hispanic. As far as I can tell, and anyone in all of the years since I've lived here, I haven't noticed any polarization of any kind, and I think we are just being trying to be politically correct in trying to do this, and we are being pushed from our state and all of the minorities that are pushing these kind of things, and it will only polarize us more. I think the more we break up into districts, the more we will have an issue. I very much want to support our at-large as we have it now. I want to be able to vote for all of the candidates that are in office, and not just one that lives within a few blocks radius of me. In addition to that, it's difficult to find good candidates that have the time, energy, and wherewithal to run for office. And I just don't always think you can find that within a certain blocked off area. And I just say we should not give in to the pressure that we get regarding this so-called polarization. I think it's a fallacy, and we should fight it. And I don't know about anywhere from A to B. It'd be nice if I knew what those were, but I can't even at this point identify any of them to make any difference. I think at the worst, we should put it on the ballot and ask people if we should go. I know that other cities have done that, and I don't know why we can't, whether we should go to districts or keep it at large. Why we have to get so complicated that we've got about 25 different things and looking at other options. We're just going to confuse the electorate the more we do this. We either go for districting, which I think is ridiculous, or stay at large, which I absolutely think we should. We do not have a problem here, and we're just asking for one if we start to polarize ourselves. Well, I followed nothing of my notes here. Thank you.
Thank you. So that concludes the public comment portion. So now I
Mr.
open it
Mayor,
up to our council
Well,
members.
before you take it up to the council level for deliberation, just a couple of responses to the community members. The process we go through has been that directed by the U.S. Supreme Court and the California Courts of Appeal as far as ecological regression. We're not making it up. It is what the law requires. It is what the highest court in the land has told us to use. So despite recitations of history, I recommend you use it. I'd much rather say we followed the U.S. Supreme Court than somebody's opinion. Secondly, the question was asked, how often do you update? We mentioned this a few meetings ago. Every federal census, the 10-year decennial census, you relook at and reallocate. So it's an ongoing organic process, at least every decade. Again, we are looking for remedies, and one doesn't take the others off the table. We don't think, as I've explained, that districts solve it. If we look through other alternative solutions and those turn out to be not to anybody's liking, we can always look back to districting. It isn't gone. It just, we think there's a better way. The question some of the speakers brought up, districts as a good idea for reasons other than what we're trying to do is solve racially polarized voting. And to that end, if you want to look at it as a policy matter, fine, but we're trying to solve one thing, and we're not, at this point, looking at would it be easier to find Mr. Goodell or not. So, and last, again, the factors we are looking at are those that come out of case law. We could certainly look at income, health care, all the other factors. Those haven't been endorsed by the courts. Those haven't been deemed reliable by any trial. Someone's got to be first, but typically I don't want it to be us. So that's what I have for you to help ponder your thoughts.
Thank you very much. I think now I'm going to close the public hearing before we go to council member comments. So this public hearing is closed, and Mr. Goodell, you're up first, please.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you to everyone who came out and spoke, and everyone who sent in a map, and everyone who sent in an email and comments. Even though it was a small amount as a percentage of the community, it's very important that you engaged in the process, so I thank you for that. From my perspective, I want to say that when I first was explained the ecological regression analysis, notwithstanding what the city attorney just said about the U.S. Supreme Court, I was very skeptical, let's put it that way. Even our demographic expert, Mrs. Depp, revealed that she's counted as an Asian. Take a look at her back there. As an Asian because her husband's last name is Depp, the man she married. So she's counted as a Vietnamese person, even though she's clearly didn't grow up in Vietnam, I don't think. But anyhow, I think, like some of you said, this is really kind of crazy to have to think that because someone's name, they might be counted as a certain race or ethnicity, and as Mayor Pro Tem Rath said, how do they know? And I've been asking that at every one of these public hearings. How do they know how we voted, right? If I used my absentee ballot, they might be able to track it down because it came in an envelope that I signed, right? But supposedly they're all secret ballots. So then we go off into the ecological regression analysis, and personally, I'm really not there yet. I'm not there yet, ready to buy it. So I do think that we are trying, and okay, let's take it to the next step, and I'm kind of repeating things that have been said, but okay, let's take it to the next step. Let's say, okay, yeah, we do have the racially polarized voting. Still with our maps, we can't solve the problem, right? It doesn't solve the issue. So why do it? why do that as the remedy? Let's go for something better if that's truly the case. And I don't know what that is yet, but I would support directing our staff to continue to work on it and come up with something. Maybe it's an education process, like Mr. Curley said. Maybe it's giving people rides to the polls. I don't know what it is. I'm curious to know, is there anyone here from the Southwest Voter Registration Education Project? We have yet to hear from anyone from the Southwest Voter Registration Education Project, who is the supposed aggrieved party for Mr. Shankman's accusations. I don't think they've ever attended one of our meetings or contacted us or spoken. So it's kind of curious that if there is that particular interest group out there who's concerned about this situation, that they wouldn't attend and participate and give us their perspective on how we're messing up. So from my perspective, I've also talked to a number of people, a lot of people, everyone I can engage in the discussion just out and about in my day, and I haven't found a single person who thinks that districting is a good idea in our city. I've talked to other people and friends. The other night I was at a Olympic opening ceremonies party up in Los Angeles, and I was speaking to one of my friends, a guy named John Neighbor. You might remember him from the '76 Olympics. He said they went to to districting in Pasadena, and he said it made a mess of the whole thing. Everyone, all they're doing is fighting over their little district, their little fiefdoms to get the resources in their part of town. So from my perspective, I think it's a bad idea to go to the districting process, and I am looking forward to other options to solve this perceived problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Buckman?
Thank you. I just have a few clarifying questions. First of all, Councilmember Goodell, your comments were excellent, and I echo a lot of what you said, and an excellent observation on the party that's been allegedly hurt by this, not even being here to speak to it. I think that's pretty telling. Don't you think, everyone? Yes. So, there was a comment to put something on the ballot, which that I know is a consideration as far as yes or no, should we go to districts? City Attorney, is it required that if we do that we would have to include maps?
Well, I'm going to answer this in a variety of ways. That'll teach you to ask a question.
An open-ended question.
Okay, well, first...
It was a yes or no.
You know that's not possible. There would be typically layers of questions. First question would be, do you want to consider districting or not? Second would be, if so, do you like map A or map A, B, or C? You would give that preliminary. If somebody said no, they wouldn't care about maps. So
yes?
Yes, the basic question, district or not, would be first.
Right.
The second question on the ballot would be, if yes, which do you like?
Okay, I think that clarifies that. So a map would have to somehow be associated,
Yeah,
or
I
a
mean,
series of maps.
If the question is, well, if you're not trying to drag it out, yes, you could just ask that base question and come back a year later and say, now which map do you like? But the preferred approach, what almost every jurisdiction that does take it to ballot, puts them all there so they cut the dog's tail off all at once rather than inch by inch.
Okay, thank you. Could you tell us a little bit about what is happening currently in the courts with this situation, and also with any legislative remedies that may be in the works?
You taken me out of sequence, but gladly. As far as the court front's going, the city of Poway went to district elections. A prior mayor, Mr. Higginson, thought it an inappropriate obligation or duty and looked at the California state voter rights laws as being unconstitutional, particularly in perspective of the federal version, which is far more rigorous and I'll say more logical as far as evidence goes. And so he filed a federal lawsuit seeking to have the court direct the Attorney General not to enforce the California Voters' Rights Act. We, with the council, looked at that. We think there's merit in it. We did, my office, we did an amicus brief that about 15, 16 cities joined in support of the Higginson case, saying the California Voters' Rights Act is constitutionally defective under the Gingles case, which I won't tell you about. But that has been argued. It went in under submission to the federal judge in the San Diego district on January 12th. We're all watching. We're hoping we get a decision soon. There was a second brief also in support of the Higginson case. Came out of San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. So just there's two in support out there, and we're waiting to see. At the same time, we've been in discussion, contacted by your local assemblyman, Mr. Bro. He, through his Orange County cities, has realized there is issues with the current structure of the California Voting Rights Act. He asked us to submit potential changes or revisions to it to make it more functional, perhaps track more of the federal version. I spoke with his chief of staff today. We're going to be talking tomorrow at 10 to try to refine and move forward what we see as beneficial changes that kind of level the playing field between the city and anybody who might accuse us of being in the wrong. So those two fronts, the federal case that you're a part of through the amicus brief, that doesn't mean you're ongoing, you won't be doing discovery in that. We gave our 2 cents. We said we think the plaintiff's right, yay court. So that isn't a long, involved, or elaborate process for you. And again, the legislation, depending on how they end up structuring in that, I would imagine the council will be supportive, and you might encourage your surrounding councils to likewise be supportive.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and come.
Thank you. Councilmember Kelly.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I'd like to just answer a couple of questions. It seems like at least one of the speakers has wondered why we've been quiet about this as council members, why we haven't voiced our opinion and what we think should be done. Well, one reason is we're trying to go through a process that protects the city legally. And part of that process, the safe harbor process that the city attorney has talked about, involves just that, going through a process, listening to public hearings, and it would be wrong for us to come in with a predisposed opinion. We needed to listen to the facts, look at the facts, go through the process, and have an open mind. And why we are having, some have asked, why are you even doing this? Why are you having this discussion? And again, the reason, as the city attorney has said, but just to put it simply, we're trying to protect the city from a lawsuit. Cities that have pushed back have been sued. One city was sued for $4 million. I don't want to spend $4 million out of our valuable city money to go towards to be sued and to lose that money. Even a legal challenge, if we were to make a legal challenge on this, would be costly. So I think this council has been going through this process in order to do the right thing, and to protect the city financially, to try to get a handle on the law, even though it doesn't seem to make too much sense, and to be fiscally prudent and watch out for doing the best thing that we can for Mission Viejo. The safe harbor process, which we've been going through, has protected the city. It's been just that, a safe harbor, so that we are protected from being sued. I want to just point out a few pieces of information that have come up, but just to highlight those, the fact is, in Mission Viejo, we have about a 17% Hispanic population. And by the way, this law is only concerned about the Hispanic population. And we don't have pockets of Hispanic voters that all live in one part of town. They're scattered throughout the city. So in Mission Viejo, to go to district elections would not solve the problem. We would still have about that same percentage of Hispanic voters in all 5 districts. So it's not fixing the problem. It's doing something to keep us safe from being sued, because the state acknowledges that even if it doesn't work, even if it doesn't result in the needed change, we did it. We went to district elections, and so we're off the hook. That just doesn't seem right. To create a whole different voting system that's not going to fix or address the problem, it doesn't seem right. So adopting a by-district election format that doesn't provide any real remedy, I think, is a disservice. I want to point our residents to Measure H, which was passed by the voters in 2010, and that is the measure that provided for district elections in Capistrano Unified School District. When this came on the horizon, I was against it, and I verbalized that because I felt the need to be able to have equal access and equal accountability from all 7 school board members. I've been active in the school districts with our schools, and I like the fact that I could go to a meeting or write a letter and have the attention of all 7. They all knew that I was voting for them. Now, with the 7 different districts, does the San Clemente trustee care what a Mission Viejo resident thinks? Well, you can see what I'm talking about. I like the ability to be able to have accountability from all 7 and not just the one who's getting my vote. I think that's something that we need to think about. And also, the city attorney pointed out some weeks ago that even if we put this on the ballot and asked our Mission Viejo voters, what do you think? Do you want to go to district elections? And if they voted it down, we still could be sued. It doesn't get us off the hook of being legally vulnerable. So in light of everything that we've seen and heard over the past few weeks and several weeks, I will now say that I don't think this is a good idea. And someone has said, everyone thinks that the council members are in favor of this because it would benefit them. And no, that's not true. That's not true. We need to make a decision based on what's best for the city, not what's best for individual council members. So in light of all this, I would like to move that we direct the staff and the city attorney to look for appropriate remedies tailored to the facts presented in the city of Mission Viejo to be identified and recommended by staff. So I'd like to, I
Second.
think, okay, so we have a motion and a second, but basically we want to kick this back to the city attorney and the staff and look for remedies that would be legally sufficient, but also that would be helpful, because going to districts does not solve the problem.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Raths, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Just my 2 cents. Former Mayor Revis asked what we feel as councilmen, and I'm personally pretty content with the way things are. I'm new at politics. I just got involved about 3 years ago, and it seems to be working really well. And since I've been representing the city of Mission Viejo, I've very active within our community, not just Mission Viejo, but the county, and I enjoy representing Mission Viejo. I'm Greg Raths, representing Mission Viejo, not Mission Viejo District 5 or Mayor Pro Tem of District 5. So I'm kind of content with the way things are. I enjoy representing all our citizens in our great city. I enjoy going to all the events, softball, and representing all the Mission Viejo residents. So I'm pretty happy with the way things are. I was concerned when this thing came up that it could reshuffle the whole council. Several of us live within a few blocks from each other, so it would totally reshuffle everybody up here. And the good part of districting is it costs us a lot less money when we campaign. We only got to campaign in 1/5 of the city and knock on 1/5 of their doors and put door hangers up and drive around my big truck with the sign in south of the city. But I like it the way it is, and I like your motion to come up with some other issue. But again, it's for the city, and if it's going to drag out and cost millions of dollars, then we'll have to regroup and consider what we want to do then, because I don't think we should drag this thing out with a lot of legal fees. But I'm willing right now to just stick with the way it is. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Bucknam.
Sorry, just a couple more quick things. I'm glad that Trish brought up Measure H and Capitol Valley Unified School District, because we have one school district in the city of Mission Viejo that has districts, and we have one school district that doesn't. And there is a stark difference in the functionality of those districts. We actually can see it for ourselves. It's right there for us to see that there's functionality that happens with one. And I would say that Capitol Valley Unified School District is not better off than they were. And it's disappointing, because what happens is when we vote for something in the city, we're not voting for something that's just in that one district. We're voting for police services, school resource officers. They are not seated in one area. We're voting for things that are across the entire city. So how could it possibly make sense to do this thinking that somebody's going to have a special interest and service just for their own area, their own small block district area? Again, you're getting away from looking out for the whole of the city and thinking about strategically the future of our city as a whole. And I think that fragmenting our city is not going to be healthy for it. And I'm actually disappointed to see that some of our former council members are supportive of districts. It's shocking, frankly. And I just can't. I cannot believe that after looking at this, going through this, doing the research, that's a conclusion with the evidence we have in front of us, that is a conclusion that somebody could draw. And it's not a conclusion that I can draw. Thank you.
Thank you. So before we vote, I must admit that when this question first came out, I was all rah-rah, let's go defend ourselves, we're in the right, blah, blah, blah. And I was even encouraged during the early part of the process. We had a number of residents say to us, I don't care what it costs, defend this. And I just wonder if these would be the same residents if we spent the $3 or $4 million that would say, way to go, way to spend that money. But we have a fiduciary responsibility to this council and to the city to manage the best interests of the residents of the city. I, like many up here and many of you in the audience, really question the regressive aspect, what racially polarized voting means, and City Council Curley basically summed it up for me one day. This is approved all the way up through the Supreme Court of the United States. The formula, the formulae, how you get the data, how you get the information, even in a state like California that has the most corrupted voter files of virtually any state in the union, it still is manifest that the Supreme Court has approved this, and that's how you work this out. So the bottom line, as far as I'm concerned, deals with the charge. The attorneys from Shankman and the purported aggrieved party have claimed we have racially polarized voting in the city. We have found out that's true. So if and when we ever had to go to court and we were asked, do you have this? We're going to sue you because you have this. And we say, yeah, we have it. And we're looking for solutions. There's not a judge that I know of that would penalize us for admitting our mistake and having to understand what it is we need to do and how we need to come about it. We now need to proceed to find deliberative and thoughtful ways to resolve this issue. And I think the cool-headed way of managing this, and it's been overwhelming. I too have a lot of outside chamber experience with residents who just don't even understand why the question was brought forward. But overwhelmingly, they're in favor of keeping things the way they are. And for all the reasons that have been eloquently presented both by our residents and by the members up here. So there are options. Once we tell the judge, if it's necessary, that we have found this to be fact and we are now going about to resolve it in a thoughtful way, we'll have the time to do that. We would certainly have the time to go forward and try to consider all the possibilities, as has been stated up here several times and again through our residents. Doing something because everybody else did it and it doesn't resolve the problems or the issues is not a resolution to the problem. It's a masking of the problem, and it doesn't suffice to relieve the problem that we now understand is truly a condition and a problem. To whatever degree we may think it is or isn't, according to the law, it is a problem. So let's go fix it. There are a number of ways to do it. You can do districts. You can do all kinds of districts. Every one of the maps that were submitted were great districting ideas. There are a number of ways to weight voting. There are a number of ways that give education, transportation, translation, all kinds of ways to reach out to the aggrieved community and allow them to take part and participate in the electoral process within our city. And so I'm going to call for the vote, unless there are any other comments from any of the council members, for the motion that we've just had to basically charge staff to come back to us at our next meeting with some of those ideas and thoughts and the manner and methods to which we might be able to rectify this condition we have of racially polarized voting. And I'd like to thank Ms. Depp for all the work that she did. I pride myself sometimes overly so in trying to get people to stumble along and that sort of thing. This lady knows exactly what she's talking about and is very well regarded in this area, and I learned a lot from you, and I appreciate your input. So let's vote now on which direction we want to go on the motion before us. Do we need to read the motion to anybody? No, I haven't. Okay, please vote and lock your votes in. Thank you very much. The vote is unanimous that we will go to staff, come back with other thoughts and ideas. City Attorney?
And one thing I would like you to consider, again, for the next meeting, we haven't agendized it, but as we look forward to the rider solution, I really would appreciate you perhaps considering a council ad hoc subcommittee for us to be able to work with, because who knows how wild and crazy we may be, and we'd look to you all to kind of temper where we might go. So, again, no action on that tonight, but I would like you to think about it, and we'll address it next meeting.
Yes, certainly, council needs to be participative in the process to try to understand this, and if an ad hoc committee is the best way to resolve that, that's the direction we'll go. We'll move on to new business. Agenda item number 13, revisions to the City of Mission Viejo personnel policies and salary schedules, and I'll ask for a staff report now, if I could. Who's giving that report?
Our Human Resources Manager, Monique Getz, will give you the report.
I noticed how deftly she got back to the microphone.
Did. Put down? All right. So good evening, Mayor Saxon, members of the council. Under the city's municipal code, personnel policies may be amended from time to time by the city manager, subject to review and approval by the city council. Human Resources staff continuously monitors personnel policies and makes recommendations for policy revisions where appropriate. The objective is to revise policies and or establish others to assure compliance with current federal, state, and local laws and regulations, as well as revise our policies to reflect the city's current practices where appropriate. The attached policies were presented to the city manager, were reviewed by the city attorney, and are now presented to you for formal adoption. Staff has proposed the following 4 existing personnel policies to be revised: acting appointment, hours of work, holidays, and CalPERS special compensation. A summary of each of the proposed revisions is stated in detail in the agenda report in your accompanying this item. On August 10th, 2011, California Code of Regulations Title II, Section 570.05 was enacted and amendments were made to California Code of Regulations 571, Subdivision B. These modifications require the city to adopt a publicly available pay schedule that identifies each position title and pay rate for all City of Mission Viejo employees. Pay schedules must not reference another document in lieu of disclosing the pay rate. The accompanying salary schedule, marked as Exhibit E in your packet, is being revised to add a new job classification titled Acting Appointment. This new job classification will be used for all full-time equivalent acting appointments that begin on or after January 1st, 2018. An employee's acting assignment pay rate will continue to follow the guidelines set forth under the Acting Appointment Personnel Policy, and CalPERS reporting of the acting pay will follow the guidelines established under the CalPERS Special Compensation Personnel Policy. No other changes are being made to the salary schedule. And that concludes my report, and if you have any questions, I am here.
Thank you very much. We have no public comments. Do we have any questions from council members? None? Do I see a motion?
I move the recommended action.
We have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Please vote. And agenda item 13 passes unanimously. Thank you very much for your report. Now we'll go to the Mayor's Commission's committee reports and actions. Number 14 is the Transportation Corridor Agency report, and I will give that report now. Karen, could you put up the first slide? So there are a couple things I want to bring the residents up to speed with regards to business at the toll agency. We began a process a year and a half ago to look at different options to connect the 241 toll rate down to the 5 at some point. We came to an agreement with 7 plaintiffs, environmental plaintiffs, that allowed us to move forward and settle all those lawsuits. The green alignment was the one that we wanted in the beginning. The environmentalists opposed it, and ultimately we settled. And basically the settlement stipulated that we could build a road. They would agree to anywhere we wanted to build that road as long as it didn't impact any of the environmental areas that they had described in their suit. And so we've come to that agreement. Through the process, we've always said that there will be a number of items and opportunities for different routes and different conditions to come forward to be reviewed. As soon as we went to the EIR process, we pared down the 21 actual options that we had to 7. Those 7 options were then turned over to Caltrans, who was managing as the lead agent for the process of the environmental impact report. While looking at those 7 options and listening to the public comments that we get during our meetings, our strategic folks and engineers sat down and put together what is now, I guess this is number 7 that will be ultimately determined by the EIR. And what you see here is taking the managed lanes off the 73 to where it comes off of the 5 and continuing those managed lanes all the way through and down into San Diego County. You had to see that quick because it's gone now. I don't know what happened to it on my, there it is. Don't touch the equipment. Got it. The other idea, or the other concept that came with this plan, is to link up Cal Camp Road with Petronas Parkway, Los Petronas Parkway, that comes into La Plata, and then continuing on through La Plata into Avenida Pico and onto the 5 as arterial connections. So I just wanted to point out that the board listens to public comments, takes into consideration all aspects of the public comments, and resolves to find the best solution for everyone. So that has been put on the table. Having said that, we go to the next slide, please. At our last council meeting, last board meeting, which was last Thursday, we came to learn through public records requests that the city of San Clemente has been charged with and paying for an antagonistic campaign against all the other members of the board and citing very aggressive opportunities that they want to ponder against the activity. Now, keep in mind, when you're a member of a regional board, it's your duty and responsibility to think first of regional solutions and not to draw yourself down into what's best for my city and then to go after all the other cities who are opposed to your direction. We'll get into that a little bit later. Next slide, please. The city of San Clemente, on a 5-0 approval, voted to award a contract for $127,000 to an agency that was to do a survey and also plan an aggressive communications campaign. They used general fund money from the city of San Clemente to fund this campaign. Next slide, please. What's on these pages here, one more. What's on these pages here outlines some of the recommendations that were made, such as, because the TCA's primary challenge throughout its history has been earning public support for their activities, the path to the success is to increase public antagonism towards the agency, its board of directors, within their home cities, taxpayers, and even some environmental groups. What the city of San Clemente is paying for and actively engaged in is telling Mission Viejo, first of all, who to elect for their council members, who to send to different boards, regional boards of opportunity to work with regional problems, and to tie that campaign to a political action committee that has never defined itself as a political action committee. On the Facebook page, two of them, one called No Toll Roads, Not My Toll Roads, and the other one is a deep state Not My Toll Roads Facebook page that I can't even get into, because if I'm to answer the questions for admittance truthfully, they would not let me in. That Facebook page. Next page, please. This page here talks about their explicit calls for antagonism to its board, to the home cities, and to the elected officials. Next one, please. Here we see more of the antagonism campaign demanding a similar study, both time-consuming and heavy expenditure to the agency. So constantly throwing up ideas. One of their ideas was the Beltway idea, which became option 9 and 10, which is still in the environmental process. But their idea was not because it would solve or help remedy the regional problem, but they wanted to tie up resources, time, staff time, money in order to study these. And we're studying them fairly.
Could you explain what the Beltway is?
Basically, the Beltway options connect the 73 down Avery over to the 241, or that connects the 73 to Ortega Highway to the 241, if it were to come to Ortega Highway from Oso. So those are some of the other tactics. Next one, please. They run it as an engagement campaign. It's designed specifically at moving stakeholder sentiment against TCA's plan in and around San Clemente so that various projects are studied and litigated for decades. We just came off of 19 years to solve the environmental issues and lawsuits. We came to a really great settlement on everybody's part. It was a win-win as far as I'm concerned. So again, this is another campaign to go out and disrupt and cause for more money and staff time to be spent. Next slide, please. The disclosure that San Clemente City Council unanimously approved a taxpayer-funded negative PR campaign against the environmental organizations and thousands of residents who fought to save San Onofre State Beach is deeply disturbing. Now keep in mind, none of us have any objection, none of the board members have any objection or angst with anybody campaigning for their viewpoint and for their ideas. The question comes to mind is when public monies are used to fund a campaign against, in favor of electioneering and against everyone else on that board. There was a lot of heated debate, as you can imagine, at the board meeting. I actually enjoyed chairing that meeting because everybody had good points. We had lawyers screaming at the top of their lungs that what was done was illegal. We had people who weren't lawyers pretending to be lawyers. We had people who weren't engineers pretending to be engineers. And the bottom line came down to, for me, I directed staff after all discussion to gather the materials and information and allow an independent arbiter, the FPPC, the FAIR, the Fair Political Practices Commission in Sacramento, to take a look at the evidence, require and ask for additional evidence, and make a decision of what happened. The next slide. What's interesting? Okay, I'm sorry. So, what was what was interesting was the day after it was pointed out that this survey, it was a push survey that was really ridiculously worded. Questions like, we all know that the TCA is in trouble financially and can't pay its bills. Would you be in favor of building a new road down to the 5 from Oso? I mean, you'd have to be an idiot to say yes to that question, I would think. But what's interesting is 2 days after it was revealed that the poll that the city of San Clemente paid for was on the Not My Toll Roads website, it was removed today from the website. So it's no longer up and available on the website. And I just want to read to you a letter from the San Onofre, Save San Onofre Coalition the day after the board meeting and the concept of sending this off to the FPPC. This is from the Save San Onofre Coalition. Today's disclosure that the San Clemente City Council unanimously approved taxpayer-funded negative PR campaign against the environmental organization and thousands of residents who fought to save San Onofre State Beach is deeply disturbing. Based on what we know to date, this marketing, this misleading $100,000 plus PR campaign was designed to pit San Clemente neighbor against San Clemente neighbor. It represents a shocking waste of taxpayer money. San Clemente residents deserve better. So I just bring this up and want everybody to know it's part of my report out as your TCA representative. But I want everybody to know that there will be campaigns coming from another city to try and influence your election of your own city council members. And this is the first, one of the things I learned early, I've been in politics as long as Mayor Pro Tem Rath has, and just twice as long as Council Member Goodell has. But one of the things I learned early on was you don't mess with other cities' politics, and you let other cities do what they do and just focus and maintain and manage your own city. So I wanted to make everyone aware of that. I asked during my comments period, I asked the representative from San Clemente when they recommended the Beltway option, which we now believe was an apparent attempt to waste money. Even though it would go through my city, I did not go back to my council and concoct some scheme to go into your city and lie to your citizens. Instead, your Beltway idea was added, and not only that, it received fair consideration, and it has even been processed through the initial screening. I'm concerned that the city of San Clemente designed their campaign and handed it off or colluded with a community group that is engaged in electioneering on top of its campaign to antagonize the public and us, the board members, in our own cities, including racially charged and anti-Semitic images of our board members. The Not My Toll Road group is opposing candidates in the upcoming election, but does not appear to have proper disclosure for who is funding the effort. And that's the question we're asking of the F2PC to take a look at. Again, we're presenting facts and issues as we see them. We'll let an independent deliberative body take a look at it and understand if proper disclosures have been managed. And we think that they have not, because the electioneering and materials that have been passed out have never stated paid for by the city of San Clemente, never stated paid for by the Not My Toll Roads Foundation or group or whatever they are. So that concludes my report. I just wanted to bring everyone up to date on an exciting toll roads meeting we had just last Thursday. So thank you. Now we'll go to our SCAG report. Councilmember.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome.
She's
going to do it.
Okay.
I will be giving that report this month. This is a report on the Southern California Association of Governments policy and committee meetings of February 1st. Both Councilmember Bucknam and I attended that meeting on February 1st. I'm on the Transportation Committee and she's on the CEHD Committee, so we hear different presentations. So I'm just going to give a highlight of the overall meeting. First of all, probably some interesting news for us. The City of Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti met with the SCAG Regional Council to introduce the 2028 Olympics and shared the vision, venues, and economics of the Games. This is interesting. He noted that a major reason for agreeing to conduct the 2028 Olympics versus the 2024 Olympics is an unprecedented agreement that allows the City of Los Angeles to receive its share of the expected profits up front versus waiting until after the completion of the Games. The region will receive $180 million at $9.6 million per quarter, which is already being advanced and which is being used to fund sports facilities and programs for Southern California communities. Now on maybe a drier subject, on the greenhouse gas emissions reduction targets, I have previously reported that SCAG was meeting with staff from the California Air Resources Board, or CARB, to challenge the unrealistic target that the ARB, the ARB, proposed for the SCAG region to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we do have some good news from that. The ARB staff released its updated recommendations, and the ARB staff is now supporting the SCAG recommended target of 19% per capita reduction in the greenhouse gas emissions for the year 2035. And this was compared to a 21% target which SCAG had been given and had identified that it was unattainable, not achievable. So the revised targets are now scheduled for ARB board action in March. And these adopted targets will be used in the development of the SCAG 2020 Regional Transportation Plan and Sustainable Community Strategies. On the subject of transportation, SCAG completed a study that explores why existing bus and rail transit riders are on the decline through the SCAG region, including in Orange County. Initially, it was thought that the loss of transit ridership was being influenced by low fuel prices and access to car services such as Lyft and Uber. The UCLA study found that the major factor was the significant increase in the rate of people that choose to own their own vehicles. The ownership rate is 3 times the rate from the 1990s and includes in particular new immigrants who previously were core transit users. A related study completed by USC found that 30 times more jobs can be accessed by car versus by transit within the same amount of commute time, or 30 minutes. So this information will also be used in the development of the 2020 Regional Transportation Plan. And in Councilmember Bucknam's committee, in the CEHD Policy Committee, they received an update and briefing on local regulations, zoning requirements, and licensing requirements for those jurisdictions that choose to sell recreational cannabis. Currently, 5 jurisdictions in the SCAG region have issued licenses for such sales, and they are Cathedral City, Desert Hot Springs, Palm Springs, Santa Ana, and West Hollywood. So the only Orange County city is Santa Ana. The CEHD Policy Committee also was briefed on a partnership between SCAG and the Dr. Lucy Jones Center for Science and Society, which is working with groups of jurisdictions to address seismic resiliency. And Orange County jurisdictions that are participating in the initiative include the cities of Huntington Beach, Irvine, and Seal Beach. That concludes my report, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We go to agenda item number 16 now, and that's the Orange County Fire Authority update from Chief Capobianco, please.
Tonight. My name is Rob Capobianco, the Division 3 Chief that also represents the City of Mission Viejo. I've distributed our fourth quarter report, which has some of our big events and some stats on there if you have some questions. I also have some stats for the month of January. OCFA received 677 calls
Chief,
for
hold on
service.
just a second. We're going to try and put this up on the screen so everyone can see some of the information.
It's going to take me a minute just because I wasn't prepared. So if you want to go ahead, Rob, and I can get
While
it
I'm
up in
talking?
about,
Okay,
in
great.
about a minute.
Let's see. In the month of January, we received 677 calls for service, and that's in our average range. Just under 500 of them were medical aids, and 8 of them were fires. But what I'd like to do tonight is highlight an event or an incident that kind of will help explain and describe what your fire department did for you and where your resources were utilized in the city of Mission Viejo for January. I'm going to highlight one fire that we had early January. The initial reports, the call came in as a structure fire or a house fire, possible persons trapped. Engine 31, the engine that responds from the Mission Viejo Lake area. They responded in less than 5 minutes, and their initial reports were smoke and fire from the front of the house. They quickly extinguished the fire, were able to keep the fire on the exterior of the house, keep it out of the attic, and why that's important is that the time that a family is displaced from the house is decreased significantly if we can keep it on the exterior of the house. There was a single occupant in the house at the time of the fire. That occupant was asleep when the fire started. He was awoken, luckily, by his smoke alarms, was able to exit the building without injury. And just as a stat, and why I want to really bring some attention to the smoke alarm, is 2/3 of all deaths that occur in the home happen in homes without working smoke alarms. This person got out without injury. As our crews extinguished the fire, they recognized some unusual or suspicious circumstances. We kept our fire investigators coming in, and just as a brief review on what our fire investigators do, they work for our community risk reduction section, which is the old fire prevention. Our goal for OCFA fire investigators is to determine the origin and cause of every fire that happens in Orange County. What we do with that is we work hard. It helps us identify our fire problem. If we can identify the fire problem, we can hopefully prevent the next fire, minimize the chance of fire casualties, or also reduce the risk or minimize the unnecessary property loss. We utilize the data that's collected from our fire investigators. We develop education programs, provide community outreach, product recall, focus our enforcement, and in this case, we were able to put one of the bad guys, take him off the street, and put him in jail. Our fire investigators, just so you know, we have 2 of them centrally located in Orange County, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they're augmented with one midweek day investigator that specializes in our criminal follow-up. Our investigators, they cover the whole county, and we rely heavily on our law enforcement partners. OCSD was a big part in why this case was a success. The other big piece is the See Something, Say Something campaign, or the old neighborhood watch. Bottom line, some of the neighbors, they observed a vehicle that they were unfamiliar with. They took mental note of that. They took photos, they even took video of a suspicious person walking around the neighborhood. That information was brought forward. Tustin PD was able to detain a person of interest. Orange County Fire Investigator, as well as an OCSD deputy, responded to Tustin and for questioning. Long story short, charges for arson were filed with the DA, and we're awaiting trial. Our actions will hopefully prevent this individual from starting another fire. So when it comes right down to it, though, what else can we learn from this? What other big points can we use and turn this into a public safety message? This is where our OCFA community educators spread our message. We've picked the date for our annual smoke alarm inspection installation event. The OCFA, Red Cross, and community volunteers will work in collaboration with the City of Mission Viejo on May 12th to install smoke alarms in our community. To end this up, I'm going to ask the city clerk. I have a quick 1-minute video that ties in what this event did. We've all heard smoke alarms save lives. We've all ignored that, including myself. This video will tie it together, and this video happens to be exactly what happened that day.
It's the phone call I never wanted to get. Hello?
Is this Steve Johnson?
Yes?
There's been a fire. Mr. Johnson, are you there? Sir, your family is safe. The smoke alarms worked.
This family wasn't lucky. They were prepared. An accidental small fire started in their laundry room after they went to sleep. But that's where this story ends, because this family had installed smoke alarms in their house. Smoke alarms can protect your family when you're not able to. Smoke alarms that work save lives. Why wouldn't you install them? Smoke alarms can cut your chances of dying in a home fire by approximately 40%. And maintaining them is as easy as replacing a 9-volt battery every 6 months and testing them monthly. Protect your family while you're away. They deserve it.
So that was when you look at that fire, and the simple thing that we can learn from that is a thing that we've all heard, and like I said, we've all ignored. Smoke alarms do save lives. Make sure you change your batteries. So that concludes my report. I've also provided you a flyer for smoke alarms, and there's some that were left out front for the public on their way out.
Thanks very much. Now we move to agenda item number 17, Library and Cultural Services Update from the front lectern.
All right. Yep. I like to see you up close. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members. I'm just here to give you an update on the current state of things in the Library and Cultural Services Department, what we've been doing, and where we're going from here. So 2017 was a great year of looking back for the library, focusing on how far we've come since opening our doors 20 years ago and celebrating with a lot of special events and programs. It was a really great time of celebration for us, and we had a lot of fun with it. But we are never content to rest on past successes. And we hit the ground running in 2018 with the grand reopening of the Pataki Center for the Arts. This is a great step towards advancing the Cultural Arts Master Plan. We're really excited to have a dedicated facility for the arts in the city and have really great plans to make full use of it to further the cultural and arts experiences for our community. So how are we doing? We're building on a history of excellence. This city has consistently rated our services very highly, and we want to grow, we want to develop, but we want to make sure that we keep the things that are working and that our community loves about what we do. So we're moving on, and we're trying to build on that great tradition. In cultural services for 2017 to 19, strategic goals as stated in our budget and master financial plan included maximizing use of the Pataki Center for Arts classes and programs and connecting the annual Arts Alive Festival with the core area vision plan. So we are moving forward with those. Our Art for All Ages program has already taken root at the Pataki Center. We currently have classes in drawing, oil and fine art painting, ceramics, music, qigong, and much more to come. So we're growing and expanding our course offerings, which is really exciting, and looking at other ways of using the facility as well. For Arts Alive this year, we're for the first time expanding onto the Oso Creek Trail, which is really exciting. We'll have a plein air competition this year, and also going to connect to the Pataki Center. We'll be incorporating Pataki into some of the festivities at Arts Alive this year, and then looking forward to 2019 to further connection with the Village Center and connecting with some of our local businesses there, tying in with some of the ideas that came out of the Core Area Vision Plan. We have a lot more in the works. For example, we're talking with Saddleback College about hosting some emeritus classes. Those are geared for seniors. And these are going to be classes that don't compete with our current offerings, but supplement some of the things that we're already doing. So for example, they offer lecture style classes like art history classes and things like that that we don't currently offer. And so it's a nice way to expand our offerings and work with a great community partner. So we're excited about that. And those classes will probably be coming summer or fall of this year. We are very excited to be hosting Summer Shakespeare at Pataki Center this summer. So the past couple of years, we've partnered with Saddleback, and they hosted it on the college campus, but they're not able to do that this year. And so we get to bring it to the Pataki Center, and we're really looking forward to a great sort of Shakespeare on the Green experience this summer. So that's going to be coming in August, I believe. We're still finalizing dates, but that's going to be something really exciting to look forward to.
I'm smiling because it's always Shakespeare.
Well, that's
Has anybody ever considered Chaucer on the park?
Oh, we got all kinds of plans. We're not stopping with Shakespeare. One of the other things that's in the works is we're looking into applying for an Our Town grant through the National Endowment for the Arts, and those are creative placemaking grants. They can be used for arts engagement, cultural planning, or design projects. And we're looking to use that to further the goals of the Cultural Arts Master Plan. And so we're talking with public services and other cities other city departments to try and figure out, the best project that will fit within the parameters of the grant. And we're really excited about that. We're really looking at grant funding right now as a good source for tackling some of the bigger tasks of the master plan, for which we don't currently have a funding source. So we've done a number of grants through the library department. We've had good success with that, and that's something that we're going to continue to pursue for the library and for cultural services as well. So here's a quote from the Community Services Plan: essential to the physical, mental, and emotional well-being of a healthy community are first-class educational, recreational, and cultural facilities, events, and programs. And that's always our goal, enhancing the quality of life in Mission Viejo through arts and culture. And we're going to continue to do that with all of the various growth and activities that you are going to see over the next couple of years. On the library side, some of the strategic goals that we had were removing service barriers and improving user experience, updating the facility for the 20th anniversary, implementing some mobile early childhood programs in areas outside of the library, and doing a community engagement process. So the library is for use. This is one of our big goals and things that we talk about a lot. We're really trying to look at all of our policies and procedures and figure out where we're creating unintentional barriers, because the community contributes to this library through their taxes and their support and their donations to our Friends of the Library, and we want to make sure that they're getting the absolute maximum out of it. So we've implemented different policies, things like auto-renewal, increased numbers of renewals allowed. We've also increased the number of items that can be checked out in certain categories. For example, we're letting people check out more DVDs and removing a per-subject limit. What we found over the past couple of years is that we had a lot of policies that were put into place when the library was new and the collection was scarce and not quite enough to go around. And so all these policies were put in place to kind of manage a scarce resource and make sure that everybody kind of got a fair shot at it. But the collection is not scarce anymore. We've spent 20 years building it, and so now we get to really take a look at those things and say, okay, we don't need that policy anymore. Let's get these items back into the hands of our community. And you'll see that the result is a 40% increase in circulation from fiscal year 16-17 over the prior year. 4-year trend there, we had been on a slight downward trend for circulation going into that, and with those policy changes, we've reversed that trend in a significant way, and that's just by changes of policy. So that's a good hockey stick right there. That's the kind you want to see. We're really excited about that, and we're looking for additional ways that we can identify those roadblocks that we're unintentionally putting up and remove them. We've simplified things like our computer login process. We're giving people more time on the public computers because now that we have more and more people coming in and using Wi-Fi, the demand for the public computers, we don't have to limit it as much. That's another thing where we were managing a scarce resource, and now we can free that up a little bit. We're also trying to make things easier for people. So now with our new Perfect Mind software, they can make online study room reservations, things like that. So just little things that make a big impact, and those have proven to be very successful. The facility updates that were implemented for the 20th anniversary have been really popular and have worked well to kind of meet the needs of the population now as opposed to when the library was built 20 years ago. So we focused on high-impact areas and changing needs. The children's area of the library is one of the most highly used, and so it gets the most wear and tear. We did a really beautiful update, thanks to Keith and his crew, in the Wiki Up, which just now is so colorful and vibrant and inviting. We got new study furniture in the children's area, which is just full all the time. It's fantastic. We also did some updates that are maybe not as showy, but to our study tables and our study carrels, we put in some privacy barriers, and now we're getting more use out of the study carrels because people aren't spreading out as far. They feel like they have a little private study space, and more people are sitting at one table. We put USB chargers and outlets in the tops of every study table, and if you walk around the library, everybody's got their devices plugged in. So those are just things that have changed since the library was built, and we are changing to accommodate those changing needs. And this background picture is the newly refreshed Wiki Up. Children learn through play, we know this. Creating spaces that invite creative exploration supports their early development and school readiness. So we're trying to create the spaces within the library that really invite that developmental play and make it fun and inviting place to spend time. Some of our other goals are still in progress. We did pilot some pop-up story times outside of the library, funded by an LSTA grant. That was successful. We got a good response to that, so we're looking at some other locations as well to do that. We're applying for another grant to kind of do a phase 2 in our early childhood development projects, and got some other things in the works with that, so you'll hear a little bit more about that later. And we also piloted a community conversation method called the Harwood Method that's been a statewide project funded by the California State Library. And that was a very interesting process, useful. We learned a lot from doing it. We're adapting it a little bit more to better fit Mission Viejo needs. It's very issues focused, and what we found is that the residents who were participating in the conversations were overall very happy with life in Mission Viejo and not identifying a lot of issues. So we're kind of trying to get at more of the nuance. How can we refine things to really meet the needs of our community as opposed to trying to focus on the big issues that some communities face of just meeting basic, fundamental needs. We're really fortunate to be in a community where we can look beyond mere subsistence and focus on what helps our community thrive and enhance their quality of life. So we're always looking to educate, entertain, enrich, empower, and engage our community. Our core services remain. We're always about lifelong learning and literacy, and we support that in a lot of different ways. And we can be creative in our approach because of the community that we live and work in. So we've been doing all kinds of different events, programs, and things. We have been doing themed trivia nights, chess learning programs. Our Popular Writers Presents programs continue to connect people with books and literature. So those are always popular and successful. And we've got a lot of exciting new programs and things in the works, and I'm not even going to be able to touch on them all, but here are a few that are coming up. We are launching our own Mission Viejo Comic-Con, so that'll be a really fun event coming up in April, and it's the fun thing about a Comic-Con is it's not just about consuming content, but it really focuses on the creative process and supporting that, and part of that is a nice tie-in back with the cultural arts and creativity, so it's a nice fit for both departments. We're collaborating with Saddleback College on a One Book, One Community read, doing a book discussion as a forum for civic engagement. And we are doing I'm really excited about this one, 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program. And this is a reading program geared towards children age 0 through 6, and it's to encourage parents to read with their children starting from a very young age. 1,000 books sounds like a lot, but if you develop a habit of just reading a book with your child before bedtime every night, you can get it before they're in kindergarten, no problem. So it's an ambitious but achievable goal, and really we want to help families get those building blocks that will help their kids succeed in school and help prepare them. It's also a really wonderful relationship building tool for families. Is you snuggle up together, you read. It's just a really wonderful process. We have just recently implemented citizenship and naturalization tutoring program at the library, and we have a waiting list. There's a lot of people interested in that, so that's been really successful. We're looking at already expanding it, even though it's only been around for a month. So that's a great success. We're really, really excited about that. And then one of the other ones that I'm really excited about is called Veterans Connect at the library. This is also a grant-funded program. It's a statewide initiative, and it is geared towards increasing the number of veterans who are able to access their benefits, helping them reintegrate into the California workforce, and supporting veterans and their families. And so far, we are the only library in Orange County that's participating in this program. So Orange County has a higher population, I'm sure, as you know, of veterans than the statewide population, and they were very, very interested in getting a foothold established in the county. So we were really excited to partner statewide. We've been talking with our other departments because the city already has a really good program towards supporting veterans in the community. And so this is about how we can partner with our existing departments and with existing groups in the community, not to duplicate efforts, but to enhance. And so we're really excited about that. That grant program gives us money for collections geared towards veterans, for programs, and for training for staff to help them better assist the veteran population. So that is a really exciting initiative, and one that we've just signed on, but we're really excited to get going with that. So this is the mission of the library that was established when the library opened 20 years ago. The purpose of the Mission Viejo Library is to give this community a place to access information, experience cultural heritage, and pursue lifelong learning. It will be a place for people of all ages to go to find the facts, feed their dreams, meet their heroes, and learn the truth. And that's what we try to do every day, and that's all I have for you. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you very much. One thing I might want to do in the future is have you go on before midnight. I hear all the time how I didn't know about these programs, I wasn't aware of these programs. Having this kind of a presentation earlier on in the meeting might benefit some as well as I'm interested in your new citizens program. I've got a couple of current citizens that I'd like to enroll in that class.
We could probably all benefit. It's been a long time since high school.
I'm not naming names here, but
No, it's really wonderful. The tutoring is geared towards a couple of different things. One is just kind of helping people understand the process of naturalization, what they have to do, the forms they have to fill out, and then how to also prepare for the test. So I think it's really useful. The people who are signed up are really excited about it, and we're just thrilled to be able to offer the service.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Everybody needs to get your mileage reports signed off on. Make note of any changes that need to be done for the record. And we will go now to council member comments. And first up is Council Member Bucknam.
Thank you. We had a very busy weekend this past weekend. We had lots of things going on. It was Mission Viejo Girls Softball Opening Day. And that was just one thing that we had on Saturday. It was actually great to see all those young ladies and parents out there. The opening day for girls softball is so different than opening day for Little League Baseball. There is a lot of lights and flashy things and headgear and tutus, and it's just a lot of fun and a parade, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I thought I'd just take a moment and share that I've been very impressed with, we've had a few things that have been going on in Mission Viejo that have required some assistance from our police, and I want to compliment our new chief on his communication skills, both with the council and the public. His use of social media is absolutely phenomenal in the way that he is also working with his staff to have good communication with our residents is great. I've noticed a lot more presence, flying the colors, as you like to say, out on the street, and people have commented they've seen our police services out on the bikes, out on the trails around the lake. Keep your eyes peeled; you'll probably see them. So big compliments to you on that, Chief, and we thank you for that. And I think you're doing a great job. So thank you. There's a thing called Purse Palooza that is coming up, and it benefits the Friends of the Library. And I want to encourage folks, hang on, I had it pulled up on my phone. Encourage you to donate gently used purses. There's collection, I think they have collection at our recreation center. Do they have a box out here? Okay, so there a lot of them are in businesses. I think they have a collection bin at Quick Copy. They have a collection bin at High Park Tap House. Thank you, Greg. Thank you. But the bottom line is the money to go buy a purse will be done on May 5th. So you can donate purses, and then you can go buy purses, all to benefit the Friends of the Mission Viejo Library, and that will be held on May 5th. So keep an eye out for that. But in the meantime, if you have some gently used purses, there's collections, places, please do that for a good cause. I'd like to just say just a few things about the toll road. I have been, for a long time, not maybe as long as Trish, gone to public hearings, Coastal Commission hearings, advocating for the completion of an alternative to the 5, and that is in the form of a toll road. No other new road has been built by any other agency. Only the toll roads have managed to build a new road in Orange County. And this is an alternative to the 5 that right now, and for 20 years, has ended at Oso. So this attack on stopping the toll road is a direct attack on the citizens of Mission Viejo. The beltway that is proposed by San Clemente goes through Mission Viejo. Does anybody see a theme here? Let other people take care of our traffic problems. Now, I want to add, a lot of people say, stop building, you won't have to build roads. You know, it's a unfortunate statement because Mission Viejo wouldn't have been built if that was the thinking. And all of us that have the benefit of living in this beautiful place, I can't imagine that we would think that other people wouldn't want to have a beautiful place like Rancho Mission Viejo, et cetera. And that's the right of those people to build and utilize their land within, approval processes. So I think it's very important for people to understand that this road is, and the completion of it in the north-south route is extremely important for business, for commerce, for people to get around, for emergency services. On Crown Valley, if you are in a hurry to get to the hospital, you are going to be slowed down and it's only going to get worse. So the reality is everyone's been building, including San Clemente, including San Juan Capistrano, and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm saying there's been development all along. We have to realize this is a regional issue and face reality and work for a solution as a region. So I applaud Ed for being bold, being on the toll road, representing the region, and also being fair, as he mentioned, and looking at all alternatives, even when it could be detrimental to our city. So we will pursue the best thing for the region, and we will continue to find solutions. And so we are behind you, Ed, and thank you for that. So if you see negative things, now you kind of understand the motivation, and I appreciate Ed going through that long explanation because it's pretty nefarious. Ending on a good note, we've got the Olympics that are going on, and we're missing some amazing things because Shaun White apparently just won a gold medal, which is fabulous. So go USA.
Spoiler alert.
I'm sorry.
Can't you say spoiler alert first?
It came up. And Jonathan Blum, who went to Tribuco Hills High School and lives in our neighboring community of Ladera Ranch, is on the men's USA hockey team. And a couple of us were able to send him some encouraging letters. And so in the spirit of the Olympics, sorry, spoiler alert, go USA. Thank you.
Thank you. So last time we'll call on you for council comments. Councilmember Goodell, please.
Thank you. I want to address a couple issues that were mentioned tonight by the public in our public hearing. First, to Mrs. Fike, Judith Fike, she mentioned that we hadn't been responsive to an email that she sent, and I want to apologize to her for that. I try really hard to answer people's emails and calls and get involved in things that I can make a difference in. And sometimes we get a little bit overwhelmed, and one of the examples is this issue with this. I didn't realize it was so organized, the attack campaigns, but we literally receive 20 to, I'd say, sometimes 50 emails a day from people attacking us about the toll road from San Clemente in each of our email inboxes, just so you know. We also receive other ones from other people about other things, but mainly it's that group or one of those groups. I'm not sure which group it is, but anyhow. So it can be a little bit overwhelming sometimes, and sometimes we have other issues, like, for example, when we had the public hearing about the Floor and Decor store, we received a lot of emails also with this pretty much the same message from certain residents or others who were, took a position, and it's a little bit tough sometimes to answer all of them. So but I do want to apologize to her that if that was not lumped into one of those types of things where we're going to have a public hearing. I think that many of us do a good job, and I know that I think that Council Member Kelly does a very good job of responding, at least thanking people for their messages. I don't do as good a job. But I do try to get involved when I can help, and I think that Mr. Rochter could be an example of that. We've had meetings about the Community Choice program, and we're continuing. That's an ongoing discussion for us, and something that we're looking into as a council and as our Economic Development Committee. That was brought to my attention by him and his group of volunteers that are looking to bring community choice to us about electrical service and other utilities for our city. Things like that. Some other things have been going on recently that I kind of jumped into and haven't really made it onto an agenda type item yet, but we may be in the future. There was another point about that I wanted to make. Oh, I know. I think Mr. Gilbert made the point that he felt that the Brown Act was being violated as a matter of course, and I haven't found that to be true as long as I've been on council, over a year now. I think we're very, very careful about the conversations that we have with one another. If it's an item that's coming before this body, we don't talk about it unless we can talk to one council member, one other one, because that means two people have had a conversation. That means not a majority of this board. I can't, if I talk to Trish about something, I can't talk to Wendy about it. I can't talk to Ed. I can't. So that's how the Brown Act basically works. And so I think that this council makes a very concerted effort and to hold the line on that particular issue. And so I just wanted to respond to that because I don't want people just to think that that's just happens everywhere. I don't think it happens here. And so, and I think we will continue to maintain that integrity and follow the law and represent you all as best we can and do it in an open and transparent way as much as possible. So anyhow, I was also very busy with many things in the last month. I participated in the South Orange County Watershed Management Group. It's a regional group with all the different cities around here and water districts to talk about the improvements and some of the state things that are happening. There's quite a bit going on in that regard. I don't have a complete breakdown and list. I didn't bring my notes with me, and I can't say it off the top of my head what was discussed, but it's interesting to see the types of things going on. And one of the things that was a big issue at this last meeting was for the statewide plan, they're making a concerted effort to focus on underserved communities. And usually we don't get to fall into that category at all, but one of the underserved communities that is affecting all of us more is the community of homeless people. And so there's just something I can't go into any detail about it because I don't have the details to give you at this time, but anyhow, there's a number of things like that that are going on that and that particular subject matter tends to run across all these other different committees and groups and boards that we get involved with. Another one that I went to last week in Newport Beach was the presentation on the water fix. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that's the statewide water project to replace the aging and dilapidated dikes and water conveyance system from Northern California to other parts of California, including all of us here in Southern California, particularly with at least one and maybe two huge tunnels that are in process and are very important to the future of our community. So interesting stuff. I just kind of raise that up for awareness that people kind of, hopefully you'll get interested in it and pay attention to that as it comes down. There's some pretty important decisions being made by the State Water Board, I believe this month or in the next 60 days, 30 to 60 days about that project. And it's, if you think about what the statewide water board or whatever they called it back in the day, they did when they first created the California water system, which enabled Southern California to actually thrive and grow. This is, the next generation of that. And we have to think ahead of what we're going to do to serve all the people here in Southern California and the whole state, really, to make it viable, make us a viable state going forward. So that was pretty interesting. And there was a couple other ones, but I think I'll leave it at that, just to say that there's a lot going on, and I think we're all pedaling as hard as we can to kind of stay in front or in the middle of the issues and represent the people of Mission Viejo as best we can. Thank you.
So see, Greg, it was a good idea to put a swimmer in with the water people. Councilmember Kelly?
Yes, thank you. Yes, it has been a busy couple of weeks, and I'll just highlight a couple of events that have occurred. I did attend the volunteer planting at the Marguerite Aquatics Complex, which was on January 27th, my birthday. That's where I went. I was overwhelmed with the turnout of Natador swimmers and Natador families who came out on a Saturday and spent their day with shovels, digging and planting plants that the city had laid out strategically. It was so crowded that it was almost, to me, it almost looked like it was hard for people to find a patch of dirt where they could dig because it was so well attended. And it is volunteer efforts like this that save the city considerable amounts of money. There are also several Eagle Scout projects that are being done there, but that one day of planting, I think everything got done, and it was a great exercise in community and in working together and in accomplishing something in a short order of time for free. I also attended, or the city manager, Mr. Wilberg, and Mr. Rattay took me for a tour of the aquatic center just last week so that I could get an update and find out what was going on and view it. And I was so impressed. That project is beautiful. It will be a jewel, another jewel here in the crown of Mission Viejo. And as I walked through the site with Mr. Wilberg and Mr. Rattay, there was, in addition to the scope of the project and what a great job that is being done there, something that impressed me is Mr. Wilberg said, "Oh, see those over there? Keith got those for half price. And, oh, see the canopies? We saved a third, 30% on these canopies." And it was like just all over the place. We saved money on this. And I was just really impressed that every one of these council members and our city leadership really is careful with the money, spending it like it were our own, like it's our own household income, being careful to do the best we can, but to be very cost efficient with that. So that had impressed me. I attended on February 9th a discussion on homelessness, which was facilitated and led by our 5th District Supervisor, Lisa Bartlett. She and a panel provided a great deal of information on the homelessness issue here in Orange County and specifically in the 5th District, and what is being done, what can be done. And there's a lot of education that needs to happen, and a lot of collaboration, and again taking a regional approach to this problem. And so I was very encouraged to get more information. Mayor Sachs said, "Why were you taking so many notes?" And I guess I hadn't realized it, but I was taking notes. It was interesting. There was a lot of information to get our arms around. On this last Saturday, I attended along with Councilmember Bucknam and Mayor Pro Tem Raths. We all attended the Mission Viejo girls softball grand opening day, and as she commented, it was a very fun event. The girls were also excited, and it's wonderful to see this girls softball league playing on the beautiful facility of the William Craycraft Park fields, which we may know as Alicia Park. Wonderful facility, and it gives me a lot of pleasure seeing our young people to be able to be out on such great facilities. Now, our character word for February, thank you, is unity. And just a little bit about unity. Unity is working together, it's teamwork, it's pursuing a shared vision or a goal, it's a family or a team, it's synergy, the increased productivity you can get by working with other people. and sharing a common faith, supporting others. And unity doesn't mean that we're all alike. This group here, I think we're a good example of unity. We think differently, but we're all pursuing the same vision, the same goal, and that is looking for the best in Mission Viejo. And unity is recognizing that other people have strengths or a different background that maybe you don't have. So just to share a quote from Mother Teresa, "I can do things you cannot. You can do things I cannot. Together, we can do great things." So those are some words about unity. Our character program and our character materials go into all 25 of our Mission Viejo schools, into just about every classroom. It's embraced by our school principals, and it has made a difference on our school campuses. So I encourage you, if you have kids, ask them about what is the character word this month and share those conversations at home. And final comment, there is part of our character program is providing a movie that supports the character word, and those are held monthly right here in the chambers. They are free. The movie for Unity will be Sunday, February 18th at 2 o'clock, and it will be Local Hero. So the movie is shown, and then there's a follow-up discussion by some of our character committee members on the character quality. So all are invited to that. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Very much, Mayor Pro Tem Raths.
Yes, Mayor, there's a couple old military war horses up here, one Navy, one Marine. I'd like to challenge our mayor to the 5K run coming up here in a few weeks. Are you up for it?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think I'll wake up.
Yeah, I'm looking forward for the 5K walk or skip or whatever you want to call it. Lieutenant Q, thank you for what you're doing. I see patrols throughout my neighborhood. Either there's something going on down the street or you're getting down into the weeds, which is really good to get the officers and the patrol cars into the local neighborhoods. I appreciate all you're doing. That's all I have.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I was really excited when I first learned that Chief Q has taken one of my desires for the city in this year to get more community policing going. I was talking about patrol cars, but this is where you let the experts do what they do and understand what they do. And he's brought bikes to our community, and they're on the trails, and they're doing a great job getting into the local business areas as well. I've talked to a couple of deputies that are excited about wanting to get into the bike patrol. And one of them I talked to, I thought he could use being in the bike patrol a little bit. And I'm going to get in the bike patrol so I can go to the mailbox and back. So I wanted to thank you for that. Let's see. I've also wanted to reemphasize what Councilmember Goodell retorted regarding the Brown Act. I've been on the losing side of 2 votes that I can think of over the past 3 years because of the Brown Act. I wasn't able to talk to more than one other person and persuade to get 3 votes on something. And we have our discussions up here in open court, if you will, transparent to the community. And as it turned out on one of the votes, I lost 4-1. Turned out on one of the votes, the person I did talk to that I thought would consider voting my way didn't. So there's no guarantees when it comes to that. I also wanted, another one of the goals I had for the year has jumped forward a little bit, and I'm really excited about it. I'm going to announce it today. We're calling it the Permit in a Day program. We've got a lot of complex permits that need to take place in the city, and sometimes they take several days, and you have to go back and forth to get these approved. So this program will offer an expedited review and approval for qualified projects. You know, we do a lot of over-the-counter stuff for solar power systems, window replacement, water heater changeouts, re-roofing permits, trellises complying with the city ordinances, resident repiping, residential heating, ventilation, and air conditioning systems. Those are some of the things we do right now over the counter. But starting soon, if not already, you may call and schedule an appointment at area code 949-470-3054 on a first-come, first-served basis. And every Wednesday, they'll take 6 appointments. So you'll have an hour. Come early so they can preview your plans. And you'll sit down there with everybody on staff that needs to be involved with whatever permitting you're asking about. Bring your architect with you, whomever you need to bring, and qualified projects will be reviewed and they'll be completed. And the only thing you need to do after they're approved is go over to the cash register and pay for them. So we're real excited to see that kind of a program start here in the city. And so you might be asking, well, what kind of projects are we talking about? They're pretty intense, actually. Residential remodels, 1-story residential additions, decks, patio covers, swimming pools and spas, residential retaining walls limited to 1 property, tenants improvement at the shops with valuations under $50,000 for restaurants are also included. So another business-friendly, community-friendly opportunity to come in and get all that permitting work done in one day. So take advantage of it. Call them over there, set up your appointment, and begin the process. So I think that's terrific. I think that's all that I have. Pretty sure that's all that I have. So we'll close this meeting and adjourn to Tuesday, February 27th, 2018 at 5 p.m. Thank you all.